Hello. Apparently I'm live. Whoa, there's a lot of chat. Hello, Debbie. Congratulations. Debbie was in first. And then we have Patricia. Hello. Oh, you're there, Mike. That's good to know.
I was testing.
I could do with this chat being much bigger. Or better glasses, one or the other. Hello, Kim. Hello, Jonathan.
You're live.
Oh, it feels like fall today in Iowa. It's still warm here. Would anybody like to take away this heat we've got? That would be good.
It was about 70.
It's hideous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good.
We have Renee. We have Renee with us.
63.
Hello, Graham. Good evening to you. Oh, it's event week. Who's spent up? I can't possibly say a thing. Let's just leave it like that. Hello, Deb. You see, Graham's ahead of me. Anyone ordered anything from Apple today? Graham hasn't. I know Graham is just keeping his powder dry until the iMac event. Hello, Peter. Hello, Superslaw 1974. I am loving that handle. Loving it. Right, okay. It looks like we're all present and correct. Looks like you can see my screen. Looks like you can hear me. Oh, it's amazing. Wonders will never cease. So, shall we see what we've got this week? Or is that where it'll all go wrong like last week? Do you remember when I said everything had gone swimmingly well? And then the screen went. Oh, fabulous. Oh, yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows? So let's try it. That shouldn't be there, but it is. There you go. It's done it again. Ooh! Naughty, naughty. I've no idea what's doing that. It's playing with my mind. But we have the week at MacBites headquarters. Then we have news of Office 2021. Don't you find it a bit weird if it's not coming out until past August that they wouldn't call it 2022?
No, because it's 2021.
Yes, but they always name it 1 year ahead, like Office 2019. It was 2018, but they called it 2019. Anyway, then we've got colour palettes. Then we have Vivaldi. Oh, part 5, quick commands. Quick commands are fabulous, and the history is simply stunning. So we'll be having a look at that. Mike is finishing his LAMBDA, aren't you?
Yeah.
With your Super Lambanana, part 3. And then we've got creating your own writer's den in Scrivener. No, it's all right. The garden shed is being left alone. But there's a lot you can do to make Scrivener your own, and that is what we will be looking at. So, we're broadcasting in 1080p. But YouTube this week took me down to 480, and I'm squinting at this video thinking, what's wrong with this? And then I noticed no red flag. 480 for me this week. So what has it done to you? Let me know. But while you're down there checking the cog and making sure you're in HD, there is a like button, and we would be very grateful if you click the like button, because it plays with our mind, doesn't it, on a Saturday morning, Mike?
It does.
Last week we finished with something like 16 likes, and by Saturday morning there were 10. And then they came back on Sunday, so gives us hours of endless fun. Let's put it like that. Oh, Debbie S was 480 like I was. Oh, Patricia's going to win the prize today, though. 144. Yeah, I don't think you can actually see 144 postage stamp size. That's the smallest it can go, I believe. And 144 was the resolution on our Motorola phone way back in the day, wasn't it? When we took a video of the dog. You can hear the dog, but you couldn't exactly look at the video and claim it to be a dog. Let's put it like that. So, what has our week been like, apart from hectic as ever and far too hot? Well, it started on Saturday with all of our music shows, but while that was happening, we were doing the two places at once thing, because there was a match on. Luckily, he wasn't in a foul temper at the weekend. No, because it was Ronaldo's debut, wasn't it?
Second debut.
Oh, second debut. Either way, he scored twice, so that made Mike a very happy bunny. Although they did equalise, didn't they? And you could be sure that bad words were said. I told him not to panic, it'd be okay. And it was. So he was very happy at the end of the match. Then there was the weekly Asda saga. They're challenged Asda, aren't they, in the clock department? It was booked for 9 p.m. on Saturday. That was because we were elsewhere at 8 o'clock trying to do a live music show. So I'm sat here minding my own business, luckily with an iPad in front of me monitoring the front of MacBites headquarters. We've now got 4 cameras out there, haven't we? We can see for miles. It's fabulous. Which was just as well when the Asda man rocked up at 7:30. Now, to give him his credit where it's due, he didn't start unpacking like they usually do. So I spotted him and shouted to Mike, Asda man's here, bad words were said. It was a bit early. And he did knock on the door first to make sure we were in and that it was all right to deliver it. Okay. So by 8 o'clock, we were preparing for Brooklyn's by Request, where the theme was, it escapes me. What was the theme?
Love,
songs we love.
Friendship and...
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was 9/11 and the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So we had some fantastic songs with lovely stories behind them. So it was a good night, it was. Which took us to Sunday. Morrison's arrived with all of the things that Asda didn't. But I was busy because it was the last day of Ship 30 for 30. And I did it. I shipped 30 for 30. If you recall, I was doing my 30 days to becoming a Vivaldi lover. So I have lots more to say about it, but that was my 30 days. So at that point, I decided to take a rest because everything had to move forward by a day this week. We needed to be in the studio early because the show needed to be out on Monday. On Monday, we were still working on the show. Not even kidding, we were back in there recording. But final edit done. Swiftly, that really truly is the final edit. Isn't Hindenburg fabulous? Love Hindenburg. Best audio editor ever. And at the appointed hour, 8 o'clock, we had a show. I know, we were shocked as well. It's not actually done us any good for this week, has it? We're not actually a day ahead though, are we? Because Tuesday was busy. But yes, there was a MacBites on Monday night. Ermintrude and that Friday feeling. Yes, Friday. Again, you'll notice the headstone. Good day to bury bad news. Yes. And all of that was because of Tuesday. No, Morrissey did not arrive, Renee, thankfully. Although there's some shenanigans going on there because YouTube recommended me a Morrissey video. I can assure you I let them know that would be most inappropriate. Swiftish. So Tuesday, of course, was the Great MacBites Live. Yes, Apple were having an event as well. But more importantly was the MacBites Live. It was the California streaming event, new phones, new iPads, etc., etc. And we had an absolute ball. I think we were live for about, was it over 3 hours?
Something like that.
No, about 3 hours, I think. And we had great fun. Obviously, Apple whipped in there for about an hour and 10. But we let them rattle on while we carried on chatting, and it was grand. However, into that paradise of pleasure, a little rain must fall. United were playing in the Champions League at the same time. So, of course, somebody... In fact, I was as well, wasn't I? Because you gave me an iPad. Yeah. So I had the match on and Mike had the match on. And it was going so well. And then bad words were said. Very, very, very bad words were said. Because they should not be losing to the Swiss champions. Trust me on that one. It wasn't good. Oh, no, it wasn't. So lots of bad words were said. Which took us on to Wednesday. Now, you know that we live in, like, the twilight zone. There's always weirdness going on here. And I debated which way round to put these slides, but I decided there'd be quite a few people who will never have heard of Bill and Ben, the flower pot men. But this is an English thing, isn't it? A UK thing, this. They've been around since the early 60s, have Bill and Ben, the flower pot men. But you just don't expect them to rock up at your house, just in case you can't quite read that. So Mike said, have you seen the skip? I said, no, I'm not looking out the window. It's only going to freak me out. And he said, oh, I would if I were you. And yeah, we have a skip and it belongs to Bill and Ben. I don't think it's the Bill and Ben, but in this crazy world, you never know. Anyway, it's still there now. Happy to report it's still there now. They don't seem to have put that much in it at the moment, do they? I would say we can't complain because we had a skip outside for about 2 months.
Carol says my dad and son.
Oh, Bill and Ben, they never actually spoke, did they, properly? It was all flubba-dubba-dubba. So, yeah, they're sort of the Teletubbies of their day, basically. But they're still known in folklore in the UK as Bill and Ben. So you wouldn't particularly have a business if you were being serious and call it Bill and Ben. Let's just put it like that. Oh, Thursday was grand. I was introduced to new technology. Something that I realised as this meeting request arrived that I'd never actually used before. So I had to get Mike deployed on the situation. I had my first Microsoft Teams meeting. I was convinced I was going to have to install software and generally piddle around. But it was actually quite innocuous in terms of what I needed to do, wasn't it? There was this link and I clicked it, opened in a browser, said, do you want to install anything? And like, no, definitely not. And thus the Teams meeting happened. So yeah, new to me. Never done a Teams meeting before. Would I be wanting to do one again? It wasn't bad. In fact, it was less intrusive than Zoom, wasn't it? If you think about it.
Yeah.
Sort of Skype-ish, but there you go. So Friday arrived. That's today, obviously. And it's pre-order day. Did we or didn't we? It was discussed. It was discussed. But no, we didn't. But then this happened. Oh, yes. There's a but here. This was this afternoon, and I felt like I was in a time warp and that maybe I had inadvertently ordered something. What's he doing outside my house? It wasn't for me. Not only was it not for me, but I mean, he's parked beautifully there, right outside the house. I thought it must be for the couple opposite. No, wasn't for them. It was for somebody on the main road that you can just see on the right, about half a mile away. So why he was parked outside our house, I have no idea, but it was tormenting that, because then it reminded me. But never mind. Next time. Graham still has a Bill and Ben for the garden. I don't ever recall having any Bill and Ben toys. I might have done, but if I did, I was that young, I have no memory of it. I do remember Mum sitting me down and saying, "No, this is Bill and Ben, you sit there and watch that while I go do something." And I thought, this is ridiculous, isn't it? So I wasn't a huge fan. I could never work out what they were actually saying, but I guess that's all your imagination, isn't it? Anyway, great fun. Bill and Ben couldn't speak properly because of the little weed. Well, yes, there was little weed, wasn't there? I do remember weed. And what was the other ones that we watched? There was Hector's House, wasn't there?
Hector's House.
And what was the other one in the garden? Or was that Hector's House?
I think that was Hector's House, I can't remember.
Of much more interest to me was things like Camberwick Green. And what's the other one with Camberwick Green? Trumpton. I remember those nicely. And Pipkins. Oh, yeah. Just not Bill and Ben. Anyway, so now I'm staring at a skip that says Bill and Ben all week. Not to worry. So, Andy Pandy. Yes, my mum did put me down in front of Andy Pandy. The woman never got a minute's peace because I was bored stiff before the titles were over. And she always said, "You never settled." And I said, "Well, if you just given me a book." So she said, "Well, yes, but at 2, I didn't think of giving you a book." I was far happier with a book, be it a colouring in book, a reading book, comic books, whatever. Just love books, not so much the TV. So, Microsoft Office 2021 is on the way. Now you're wondering, aren't you? Office 2021 is a boxed product. It is not the subscription version. So this version is a purchasable thing in a box, even on CD, I do believe, or DVD. And it will be available on the 5th of October, which, if you recall, is the day that Windows 11's being released. Which is all well and good. So I said to Mike, right, no problem then, are we doing the Windows 11 thing? At which point Mike did some research, and then we all... There's another one from my youth. The Smash Men falling off the chairs, laughing. Because the... do you want to give us what it said, or have you not got it open anymore?
For mash gets smashed.
No, not that bit, Mike, crying out loud.
I've not got it open anymore.
The date range from whence you will be able to update.
They're doing it in chunks.
They're doing it in episodes.
Between now and 2022.
So it could take 12 months for you to get the notification that your Windows 11 is arrived. And I'm like, but I was thinking of having it by the 6th of October. So that may or may not be happening. But the point with this Office update is that you don't need it if you have a subscription. If you don't want a subscription, you just want to pay for Office and install it, then that is what this version is for. So some corporates go for this version. But if you had Office 365, which used to be what Office subscription was called, then you don't need this version. So what we have at the moment is Office 2019 for Mac, and we had Office 365, which is the subscription version. What's happening is you will no longer have 19, you will have 2021. But as I say, it's a product that you buy and you will install, and you will have that version as is, barring any security updates, until they bring out the next boxed product, if they ever do, because at that point they might decide to go subscription. So why would you go for that version? Well, some people just don't want a subscription, and they will hold on to a version of Office for 10 years. So it's more cost effective for them to go for the box product. However, if you go for the box product, you don't get any updates. Whereas with 365, it's a rolling update system. So if you had got Office 2019, you would not have Let and LAMBDA, would you?
No, I was just going to say you won't have LAMBDA.
No, you won't. They don't give you feature updates in the boxed product. That's the biggest difference, barring the fact it's subscription. But it isn't that you can go and buy Office 2019 or 2021 for, £60. No, you're looking at like £300, £400, £500. So it's the price that it used to be. Now, Office 365 has since become Microsoft 365 rather than Office 365. You still get exactly the same as you got before. So all of the apps that you had in Office 365, you have in Microsoft 365. It's just a name change.
Patricia says, how does that affect OneDrive?
It doesn't affect OneDrive at all. OneDrive is included, your OneDrive space is included with your 365. Now, there's two ways of getting that. So if you want OneDrive space, you can go to onedrive.com and just buy OneDrive space. So you can pay for OneDrive space, and they will give you Office 365 for free. It will be included. The other way is you buy 365, you sign up to it, you either subscribe by the month or by the year, and they will give you free OneDrive space. So there's just two ways to achieve exactly the same thing. However, if you were to buy Microsoft Office 2021, it does not include OneDrive. So you would have to get OneDrive space separate and on top of it. So I'm mentioning it's available. Some people are religious in their opposition to subscriptions, but there's a lot missing. So did you write a blog post why you shouldn't buy Office?
I did.
It was clickbaity, that, wasn't it? But the upshot of it wasn't don't buy Office, it was don't buy the boxed product, because there's too much missing. It would cost you in effect twice as much, because you wouldn't have your OneDrive space. So what I would do is stick to the Office 365 subscription. In addition to the usual stuff with that, I get the boxed product. There's two ways of getting it. You can get the boxed product, or you can get a code online. If you pay Microsoft, you'll pay more than you would if you got the boxed version. Now, when I say boxed version, I mean the boxed version of Microsoft 365, which is not the boxed Office suite. I would get mine from Amazon and I would save about £20. If I wait until Black Friday, there'll be an offer and I'll get it for about £47. Instead of, I think if you renewed with Microsoft, you'd be looking at least 80 to 90. So I always wait for the sale. Now, Paul in Ohio always tells me there's never a deal on in the States. It just doesn't seem to become available in the States on any of the big days when Amazon have a sale, which I don't understand. Obviously, they have a way of tracking which country these numbers went to, or you could just buy it somewhere else and then give it to somebody. But it does say only redeemable in the UK when you get the sale deals. So I would stick with Microsoft 365. 1, it's more cost effective. 2, you get all of the updates. And 3, you get the OneDrive space. So I'm just making you aware it's available. That does not mean you should. I am recommending that you dive out and buy it. Definitely not. Definitely not. Okay, any more questions on that at the moment? Pete doesn't like Teams. It's like a modern seance. Is anybody there? I do agree with you, Pete. I was in this meeting with 2 other people, and none of us had a camera on. And there were just like letters in front of you, but you didn't know whether they were actually there or whether there was no like attendee list unless you brought the chat up and no one was using the chat. So yes, there was a bit of a "can you hear me, mother" at the beginning of it all.
If it's not "can you hear me, mother," it's "can you see my screen?"
Well, you see, no one was screen sharing with what I was doing. But yes, I would imagine you need to have feedback, don't you? That what's happening, like a preview.
Well, I did a Power BI course this morning, and I had about 30 people on it. I was about 15 minutes into it, and one person says, "I can't see your screen." So I said, "Can everyone else see my screen?" And they all came back and said yes. So I said, "It must just be you. Can you log out and log back in again?" I'm thinking, why did he wait 15 minutes when I was quite clearly 15 minutes into the training and talking about things on the screen?
Well, in relation to Pete and his seance, the best one was Hindenburg, who were having a webinar, and they were using AirMeet, which is like Zoom, but in a browser window. And this guy starts off, and it was an hour, this thing, which is quite short for them. Usually they're 3 hours. So he starts off, and he says, "I'm on my own today, blah, blah, blah. I'll keep my eye on the chat." Anyway, he started doing a demo, and then he came out, and I'm like, will you just keep still? Either demo or don't demo, but I don't need to see you yakking, your talking head, and then in and out like a yo-yo. And I was proved quite right, because he had totally forgotten that he should be screen sharing. So in and out, in and out, in and out, and then out, forgot to go back in, and promptly did 15 minutes of a demo. I was rolling on the floor laughing. Other attendees, not so much so. Because he's literally saying you click this button here and then you move over there and then you do this, and we couldn't see a thing. So people are going mad in the chat, absolutely mad. You know, like I've carved time out for this webinar and now I can't see the screen, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, it got nasty. And this system's got this feedback emoji thing going on where you can like tap claps and stuff like that. And people are just constantly sending any emoji they can get their hands on to try and like let him know that there's so many emojis, something's happening. But I mean, there should be a "whoa, stop there, boy, we can't see your screen" emoji. And there wasn't. So he's getting all of these claps and loves and thinks he's doing a grand job until he finally twigged.
That happened to me the other day. You know, at least I keep my eye on the chat on my second monitor. I was training, so I know I had shared the screen before I started, and then somebody had a problem and they said, "Can I share my screen with you?" And I know you're not really supposed to because it's a training course, but I said, "Yeah, go on then." So he shared his screen for 30 seconds and then stopped sharing. But because I was sharing and then he shared, it automatically stopped my sharing. So I then carried on training, forgetting that I was no longer sharing my screen. Till somebody piped up, "You're not sharing your screen."
Well, I must admit, it's happened to me. Not usually, never in a training session, but in after hours, sometimes I push the button and it's supposed to switch the screen and it doesn't. And then I'm carrying on and you guys are going mad. But I can see the chat right in front of me. But, you know, you have to deliver the session differently if you're on your own. Having said that, there have been times where it's not been my fault. It's been a technical issue where I'm demonstrating an iPad or an iPhone, and when I last saw it, it was on the screen and then it's disappeared, at which point I need Mike to tell me it's disappeared, and he doesn't tell me it's disappeared because he's not looking. Then you guys tell me you can't see it. You know, it happens. But if you're on your own and you've got a room full of people who are pretty angsty about it, that they're getting really rude about it, you really do have to keep your eye on it. But I think he saw these hearts and claps and loves and stuff and thought he was doing a grand job. And it was only it was over 15 minutes, by which point a good 20% of people had left. I just left it rattling away. And I thought, well, I'll listen to him and kind of envisage the screen and where he might be pointing to, and we'll do it that way. And then he said, "It's all right, I'll catch up with it. I'll do that bit at the end." And people are going mad about that as well. So yeah, it was grand fun. Oh, I've had great fun this week with conferencing platforms. Let's just say that.
I just liked Pete's description. It's like a modern seance.
It is. It always is at the beginning. especially if it's more like a meeting than training. Because if it's training, the trainer is going to facilitate that training and be aware of how to facilitate that training. But if it's a meeting, and this was a meeting where I wouldn't exactly say I was in charge of the meeting, so I was just attending the meeting, in which case you have to let somebody else lead the meeting, but they're not capable of leading the meeting. So yeah, it's like the blind leading the blind. We could all do with a guide dog. That'd be grand, wouldn't it? Although Lola probably wouldn't be happy. Right, why aren't my slides moving? Here you go, there's another problem. I bet, where's my mouse? I bet if I click over here, it'll all go funny again. No, it's just that first slide it doesn't like. So, I thought we would have a look at capturing colour palettes, because I have had questions about this. So, I'm going to look at two apps. One's totally free. The other one is free up to a certain number of captures. And other than that, it's $5.99, which is on sale at the moment. So the first one is Adobe Capture. Now, Adobe Capture is a strange app because it's been around a long time, but not called Adobe Capture. So initially, way back, it was called Adobe Kuler, Kuler. And that is I think it's an American Indian word for colour. But it's spelled, it's spelt as in you could look at it and think, oh yeah, that's colour or cooler. But cooler, the idea was, it didn't really work for Adobe, to be honest, but they did leave it at Adobe Kuler for a long time. But people started calling it colour. So they decided they'd change the name to Adobe Colour. So they did. And there was an app for that, and it had an eyeball on it. Then they decided, rather than just have it handle colour, that they would have it handle other elements as well. So then they rebranded it totally, and what you're looking at there is the total rebrand. Don't intend to look at all of it today, because some of it's very edge case nuanced. But the capture for the palettes is useful, so I thought we would definitely do that bit. The other app I know some of you are aware of, which is called Pigma. It's great fun looking that up on Google, because it automatically corrects it to Figma, and then you're off down an entirely different path. But both of them will let you capture colours by actually looking at them with your phone. So that's the plan. I will show you how that works, is the plan. So first thing we're going to need to do is have you see my screen. This worked in rehearsals. That does not mean it's going to work now, but fingers crossed. Nothing's happening. Oh, for crying out loud. Come on, you've done it before, you know you can do it. You're thinking about it. Spin, spin, spin. Spin, spin. Oh, that's better. That's much better. Excellent. Right, so these are the two apps that I'm looking to capture. Now, before you were full screen. Why aren't you full screen now? I definitely want you full screen. You would look much better full screen. Why are you not? Ah, there we go. Much better. Right, hopefully you can see that. So these are the apps in question. So the first one is Adobe Capture. I'm going to go into Capture. Now, when you go into it, it can do a lot more than colour. So I've actually got it set to all assets. So the reason that this app exists is to provide a bridge between the real world and your colours. So you will see in here, it says all assets. But across the top, there is materials. So you can capture real world assets and turn them into materials for the Adobe applications. It can also capture type. It can capture shapes. You'll see I haven't got any of these at the moment, that's why they're not there, but I do have one colour that it's got, one colour palette, and there's also looks and patterns it can capture and brushes it can capture. So as I say, we're going to focus on the colours themselves. Right, so it's really simple to use this. It's how you're going to get the colours that you create in here, out of here. And if you're using the Adobe suite, then you're minted. All you'd need to do is open Photoshop and it would automatically appear. But many of us are not using Photoshop. We are using Affinity, so we need to know how to get it into Affinity. So at the top here, it says view the library, and I have multiple libraries. So I actually have a MacBites library that we've done before. There's my post-it notes. So the bit at the top is your actual library. You'll see I've got in here people's names. These are people who have put out content and let you download it for free, and you can load it up into this app. So this app is more than just a capture app, but it would work best with Adobe. If you're separating them out into individual groups and stuff like that, that's why I'm not bothering. Because I'm going to take these things out of here and work magic with them elsewhere in Affinity. So in terms of capture, at the bottom you have the blue lozenge thing, and that can either load in a picture or it can take a photo. So if I tap the photo, there's my desk. And aren't my plants looking well? Oh, look at them, they're fabulous. Yeah, I've not killed them yet. This is because they're plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover over the top of it. I can move around, but I'm going to make sure I've got some of the screen and some of the greens. And then I'm going to tap the picture. Now, it now says tap to unfreeze. But what's happened is it's frozen on that. And that's useful because these dots that you see, so this one in the top right hand, well, to the right hand side, we have the fawn coloured one. And that marries up to the dot at the bottom. And if I move the dot at the bottom to anywhere else on here, I could put it anywhere I want, it then changes that colour well in the row at the top. So it probably does make sense to have that one in here. And then I've got a lot of greens, but I can actually move these greens around. So if I wanted that one, and you can see it also highlights it, and it shows me the kind of colour it's going to get. I get a lovely preview with that as well. So I want something more like that. That would do nicely. That one, which should be the fourth one. Are you the fourth one? No, you're the first one. Let's get you in there then. I'm looking for the fourth one. Are you the fourth one? Where are you? Yes, you are. Right, that one was a bit not what I'm looking for my green. So I'm going to whip it around here and try and pick a different green. Possibly not that green. Let's move into here and see what we've got. Lightish is good, just not that light. So you can be quite precise with this. Oh, hang on, you're the wrong one, aren't you? It's that one I'm looking for. Let's get this one. I quite like that muted one. Where was I when I got that muted one? Not that muted. There we go. Oh dear. That's not good. And I don't really want it that bright either. That'll do. So you can move those around. So if I wanted a blue, so let's say that one I've just moved. If I wanted a blue, I can actually move it up there and then pick up the blue from it. So despite the fact you've got a picture, you can play around with it in there. This is the point that you're just capturing it though. I love my plants because they're plastic. Anything else would die. But it's really nice having those there. Right, so at that point, once I'm settled with that, I have some options with buttons around the edge. So at the top, I have that option that I brought up. And I can also make a gradient by tapping the other button. And I can choose where that gradient goes from. So I could pick up that end there and take that end over there, if that's what I want, and move this round. So I've got 3 points on there. I'm not particularly bothered about that though, to be honest. So let's tap back in here. Right, and this one in the top right, which looks like two circles overlapping each other, it shows you your original image in the bottom left, but it also lets you change the saturation, exposure, highlights, etc. Now that saturation, that's not good. Whoa! But if you do that, the picture looks hideous. But if you look across the top at the colours, they're not actually as hideous as you would imagine. They could be much worse. Although I will move that up there, get that a bit brighter. But I think the original's probably the way to go with that. But you can swipe along the bottom here, even doing like hue adjustments, and then the lovely plant becomes blue, which is what most of my plants look like. Dead, in other words. All right, so that is the image itself, but that's only the start of what you can do with all of this. So at the bottom, there's a big circle with a tick in it. So I'm going to tap that. That takes you to the next step with this. And yes, this is totally free. You do need an Adobe account, but you can get a free Adobe account. I think it even gives you a little bit of space. You're not forced into any apps or anything, but you do need a free Adobe account to make it actually work. Right, in here, you choose the colour at the top. So at the moment, blue's selected. If I then tap on the green and the green next to it, and the green next to that, you can see at the bottom half of the screen that you can tweak that. So if I'm on the third one and I just want it to be more green, much brighter, then I can actually manually do that. I can also adjust the brightness of it. So it's staying the same tone, but the brightness is changing. And you can see your hex code in there. So all of this in here is editable. Right, also across the top it says swatches, and then next to that it says harmonies. Swatches are the 5 colours that you have picked. And if you tap on harmonies, it actually shows you there how the colours merge together. So if I wanted to change the harmony by moving one, it shows you how that would affect it. I'm not at all sure that's an improvement. Let's move it back to the green. That's better. And then at the end, you can see the image itself. So it retains that image, so you can move these balls about in this image to change the actual colour. It keeps the image. Swatches are probably where you're going to spend more time, I would have thought. So the next step, when you're happy with it, and that doesn't look too bad, does it? Then you can save it. So I'm going to tap on save, and it comes up with this information here. Now, the first thing at the top is the colour theme's name. So you tap in there, tap the X on the right hand side, and you can name it. So let's name that Demo Greens. Okay. The next option is where to save it to. Now, as it says, choose a Creative Cloud library to save the colour theme and access it in the Adobe apps. I would do that, but I wouldn't get too concerned about the Adobe apps if you're not using the Adobe apps, because you don't need to. So in the Adobe colour in here, it's talking about the library. So it's the libraries that we saw before. So there used to be an app called Shape, and I did a Made in Shape library, and I've got MacBites Learning and all kinds of stuff in there, but I'll just leave it in Adobe colour. So it's just a colour palette as far as I'm concerned. Another option you've got when you save it is whether you publish this colour theme to color.adobe.com. And that would make it public. So if you want to share it or share it with a client, you could do that. But I'm leaving that set to off at the moment. So I'm going to tap save on that, and it has saved it. And that takes us back to in here where I've got the running order and things. Look at this. Right, back to my desk. But I can still go in and edit these things if I need to. So let's just have a look at what else we have got in here. We have a torch. That is actually turning my torch on. So you can see that shining back off there. And it's going very blurry. But you have the option to turn the torch on should you be in a dark environment. And there's the torch going off. You can flick the camera around, trust me. Bad hair day, so we're not doing that. Or you can choose from the library that you've got. You can also tap the cross, and that takes you out of capture mode, takes you back to library mode, which is where you are. So there's the creation one I had before, that was in there before, and there's our new one in here, which is the demo greens. You can go into one that's already there, and you can preview it, and it will show you the actual image, which was just my phone. No, that wasn't my phone, because I wouldn't have 6,500. It was the front of a magazine. But you can see the image. And you can preview the theme. You can even edit the theme in there because there's a pencil. So it can load in, and retrospectively, you can make changes to it. So nothing is fatal in here. Right, so we've got these two. How do we use them if we were working in a Adobe Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher? Well, we'd need to get them from here, somewhere we could actually work with them. And the good news is you can actually do that. So I'm going to go into the green demo greens, and in the lower left-hand corner, you have the ability to share. Now, you can share it, which is, well, first of all, you've got to save to your camera roll. So it will save that to your camera roll. You've also got the ability to share it. So if you tap on share, you've got share to or share the colour link. Now, share to, let's tap that. It brings up your standard share sheet. And what it's going to do is share that image. So you can see at the top it says PNG image. Well, we don't want that, do we? So that's not really what we're after at all. But also in the share, there is the ability to share the colour link. We didn't share this to colour, so we don't have a colour link to share. But that's how it would do it. It would make it public. So let's go back a level and have a look at the rest. There's export as. Because yes, saving an image would give us access to the colours, but not precisely, not the colours we've extracted, because we've gone through this and actually manually picked them all. But if we go to export as, this is where the magic happens. You can export the image, but you can also export an Adobe Swatch Exchange file, which is what an ASE is. Also next to that, you've got the colour values. So if you want to send the colour values, it's now a test. It says text document. So let's send that to, let's airdrop it to Mohawk, which is where I'm sat. So it's sent and it should be arriving. That will arrive in the downloads folder. So that's one thing we can do with it. But as a text file, you're probably going to be fairly limited. So let's get up my downloads folder, which is probably behind here. There it is. And there it is. So let's open that. Are you going to open? Go on, you're a text file. You can do it. You know you can. That's what you would get. So it shows you the colour values in text-based information from left to right. We didn't name the swatches, so that's why it's swatch 1, swatch 2, etc. But all the information that we need is in there. We got the hex values. So that's one way to do it, as text. I don't think that's the best way to do it. So let's go back into there and send it to ourselves a different way. So this time, in the export as, I'm going to choose the Adobe Swatch Exchange file. Now, this is going to be a file, so I'm going to need to get it onto this machine. So let's do a file. In fact, maybe we could do it a different way. Yeah, maybe we can still airdrop that to ourselves. So either send it as a file or airdrop it to yourself. That one has arrived. So let me go get it and I can share it with you. Making it so you can see this. There we go. And there's the downloads, and this time I have this Swatch Exchange file, which it recognises as a Swatch Exchange file. And that can be loaded straight into Affinity Photo Publisher or Designer to be used. Obviously, it also works with everything Adobe, and it works with anything that can read a Swatch Exchange file. Okay, let's get back over here and get rid of that. Right. And I can do exactly the same principle with all of these others. So just do another export as an ASC, airdrop it, and get it onto Mohawk. And it's arrived. So it's quite easy to use. Let me have a look. There was a comment. It was Carol, I think, and Carol said this would be handy for colours from pencils. Yes, it would. It would. It's very, very useful, this. I use it also for shapes, but that's a whole different demo. So this is totally free. Did I put the link in there, or if not, can you find it, Mike? I think I did.
The links are in there.
Oh, that makes a change. I'm ahead of myself. Good grief.
And I posted them before.
Oh, that's fantastic. Right, so that's how you how you can use this in that kind of way. Let me leave those there and actually show you in here. So we'll get rid of that at the moment. If you wanted to use Photoshop or anything Adobe, it's very integrated. It's not as integrated in Photo. Affinity Photo, but if I just get a new file here, even the new dialog is like, what are you thinking? But this libraries panel is accessing the same area of Creative Cloud that the mobile app is. So if I go up, we've got our Adobe Color, we've got MacBites, the templates, all of these things that I mentioned before, MacBites Learning and the Master. So in there, we have what we've actually created. So this one here was called Creation. This one here was Demo Greens. And there are the actual colours. And to access those and just start using them, all you need to do is just one click and you're done. And it loads it in to the colours in the top right-hand corner, which is very integrated. But it's not that much more arduous with Affinity. But that's when it says save it to the library and which library, that's why. It's one single library panel, but within it you have folders and they are called libraries, individual libraries. So the libraries panel manages multiple libraries within it. And that's how it works. And everything that's available in here, so if I were to create something in Photoshop, it would ripple through to my phone. Obviously doing it that way, if it ripples through to the phone, then I can send it out as an ASE and take it into Affinity. But that is how it is supposed to work. Right, that's the Photoshop way of doing it. That's totally free. The Adobe way, rather. That's totally free. But there is another option. So let's bring the other option in and get that there. Right, so that's the first one. But the second one is called Pigma. Pigma works in a similar way. It has projects initially, so there is a sample project, and the sample project has information in it like that, which gives you quite a lot of information. You've got your hex codes, each one has a name, and you've got the RGB values underneath. So very, very nice, very pretty. You also have palettes. Now it says no palettes found. I'll create a palette and you'll see how that works. You've also got gradients in here. So if you wanted to choose with gradients, you can do that. Now, what was the third one? Suggestions. These are suggested colours that you can actually add from here with the plus in the top right of each colour sample. So let's go to palettes, and in the top left-hand corner, you have access to the camera, which is also available in the projects as well. So the palettes here, I'm going to tap that and we'll point it over here. Now, one thing I find with something like those greens, can you see how fast that's changing? It might need to be steadier like that. So I've put this down, but there's a lot of different greens that we're passing through there. So it's actually quite difficult to get just the one you want. Let's point it somewhere lighter and then tap. So I've tapped the circle at the bottom and you can now see that it says 1 and there's actually a colour behind it. The colour behind it is the colour that you've picked. The number inside it is how many colours you have selected. So if we move over here and find another green. Oh, UFO, that's a good one. Oh, snot green, lovely. Avocado, had that for lunch. And let's get a different green. Sick green. Sorry about this. Snot and sick, that's not bad in a demo, is it, Mike? Right, so what I've done is I've selected 4 at this point. I'm going to tap it again and get a nice grey one in there, desk coloured. And then what I can do, I mean, I can carry on picking these as long as I like. So I'm wondering why there's a cable under my desk as well. Oh, what have we got here? Let's get that one. Right, so we've got 7. If I now tap where it says 7, these are the colours that we've picked. So obviously we can see at the bottom, they're very different. Catalina green, how did it know? How did it know? But I can probably do without the UFO defense screen, can't I? But this is where you can go in and change these if you want to. So if I'm going into here, you can move this or you can delete it. So I don't think we need that one. So I've now got my colour selections in here. But what I've actually got there is the basis for a palette. So underneath at the top, it says enter name. So I can go in there and should we do demo greens again? Demo greens, but I'll put Pigma. Right. I can see that. You can just about see that, but it would make much more sense if that was light coloured, wouldn't it? Right, so I put a name in for it. And then all I need to do is tap save. And then I have my demo greens from Pigma as a palette. What you can do in there, you can have multiple palettes in here to scroll through them. You can use the search at the top once you have. There is also the projects, and in there you can put a project and you can add the colours to that. So I could add a new project. So we'll just put demo and create. And there's nothing in there at the moment. But what you can do is either capture to it. So I'll open this up and we'll go get some more colours. Bright sepia. Oh, let's just twang and see if we get a decent one. And let's have a blue one while we're at it. Some kind of blue. And OK to that. And you can see they are fractionally different in there. There they are. But there's my colours. So it says you can change the suggested name. You can change anything about it. So tap the pencil and do that if you want to do that. And let's come out of there. And where the heck have they gone? I don't think I actually saved those. But there you go. Now in here, the ones that I've selected, you can actually select these and do a move. And move it to a project. And as you see, when you say move, isn't actually moving them, it's adding them to it. So let's go in there and add that one in there. So whip back to the project, and now the 3 colours that we've got, we've actually added it to a project. So the palettes themselves tend to be smaller maybe than a project would be. You might have multiple ones in here that you just scroll up and down to find. Which one should you use? Ooh. This one is $5.99 at the moment, but that is for a lifetime license. It's also available as a subscription at 49p per month. But given that an annual subscription is $5.99 and a lifetime sub is $5.99, I went for the $5.99 and be done with it. It's a nice way of working with colour. Instead of just giving you the 5 balls, which Adobe Capture does, where you then have to go in and do another 5 and another 5. In here, you just keep taking them. So I think I might possibly go for this one. The integration, obviously, would swing it with Adobe Capture. But if you're not using Adobe, then half of the features are not going to be relevant to you. But that's 2 ways to capture colours and work with them. So which ones do you guys like? Which ones would you prefer? We will revisit Capture because it can do so much more in terms of shapes and things like that, where it can create vectors from real objects. But this time we were literally just looking at the colour and capturing colour. So has that been useful for people? Have you noticed what this says when I actually come out of it? Just in case you ever think we're joking here. MacBites Siri. This is MacBites Siri. Part of the demo tonight. So let me know in the chat while I get rid of this. So let's get. I don't think
Carol likes the look of Pigma.
I think Pigma's got more features. I like the look of it. I like the exports from it, and at a pinch you can just take a screenshot and you've got something to work with. So yeah, Pigma's definitely worth a look at. Debbie much prefers Pigma. I think if it's just colour, Pigma's worth the money. If you're looking to capture anything else, then maybe Adobe Capture can help you. But I look at it like this. Pigma have, let me get something on the screen so we're not looking at nothing. Pigma have to make an app that people will want and continue to work with. Whereas Adobe can just bin these apps right and left, and that's what they do. Or they take Adobe Cooler, made it Adobe Colour, then made it Adobe Capture, and saddled alongside it is like a Wallace and Gromit sidecar. A million more features that weren't in the original app that you might not use. And they're in your interface and they're potentially in the way. So I always think if there's an app and it's paid for, they've got to try and make that app. They've got to tempt you to stay with that app, whereas Adobe don't really have to. So I'd go for Pigma. Right, okay. Debbie says, I somehow stumbled across a way to use a photo that was already in the camera roll. Haven't been able to do it again. In Pigma. Let me have a look. That's a very good point, isn't it? Looking at that, that's a very good point. I would imagine... Excellent point. I thought that was just automatically there. Is it in here? No. Is it in there? From projects or palettes in the screen. Okay, done that. Project camera, palette camera. No. I'll have a look. I didn't do that, I must admit. I will have a look. It's not there. You can rename it, do all kinds of other things, but it doesn't actually mention taking it from that. I will have a look. Right, so on to Vivaldi this week. Oh, there's been an update. Who is aware of the update? I headed off to a Dutch site to try it. Right, it's I think it's 4.2 point something. And the update, there's 3 elements to the update. So you now have the ability to translate a block of text privately. So what this is going to do is you highlight a block of text and then you get this popover and it's going to automatically detect it in terms of what language it thinks it is. And then it's going to try and convert it. And in my case, it tried converting it to English. I'm assuming that's because what I actually had in there was English. So mine is set to English. But what I tried was trying to find a paragraph in another language and convert it to a different language. It did great. So I translated this Dutch paragraph into English, got the gist of it, and then translated it into Italian, and then took the Italian and gave it to Google and see if Google could translate it back to the English. It was more or less right. But I do always remember my evidence lecturer at university. You do criminal law and you also do the law of evidence. And we had the most fantastic lecturer for evidence. And when he came on to explain the rule against hearsay, he started a whisper at the back of the auditorium. And at the end, obviously somebody else said something different, but he always said with the rules of evidence, that's how send for reinforcements we're going to advance becomes send 3 and 4pence we're going to a dance. So I was interested with this as to how well it would do it, and it did a pretty good job. So that's one update. The other big announcement from them is that Manjaro, the Linux distribution, are distributing Vivaldi now as the default browser. So I know that they're thrilled about that. That is a big thing for them. And if you think about it, Vivaldi came out 5 years ago now, and from nowhere. And the chances of a browser being adopted to any great degree in this day and age are pretty slim, to be honest. Pretty slim. But they are now the default on Manjaro distributions of Linux, which is good news. Then they've added the ability to make the QR codes easier to use. So did I look at the QR codes, or do we need to look at the QR codes today? I'm sure I've mentioned them, but I've been Vivaldiing on so many different platforms in so many different ways. Let me know if I've demoed it on here. But I will demo it again, whether I have or not, because this is completely new. It's a different way of doing it. So those are the 3 main updates in this update. I wouldn't say it's a huge update. It's like polishing what was already there update. But nice. Okay, so let's go and have a look at Vivaldi. Do I have a Vivaldi window? I've got my real one. Let's get another one. Right, what am I supposed to be looking at with Vivaldi? Oh, quick commands. Quick commands are fabulous. Love quick commands. Right, let's get to somewhere on here. That'll do. That will do. Anywhere will do, to be honest. But that will definitely do. Right, quick commands. Quick commands I did briefly mention last week. I mentioned them in relation to being like Alfred. So Command and E gives you this. And what you're actually seeing is all the pages that I've got open in other windows. So I've got 3 Vivaldi windows open, and these are the tabs that I've got open in them. So if I wanted to see my that one after hours 146, all I would need to do is to type that in and then press enter, and that would bring that window to the front. So that's only the beginning of what that can do. But it shows you the tabs first. But last week I was showing you that you could instigate commands that way. So the command that I was interested in was the ability to capture the screen to a file, to the clipboard, or an area to the file or the clipboard. So I put the commands at the top, and then we've got the history at the bottom. So these are the pages that you visited, and it even tells you when you visited it. Also shows you the closed tabs that you've got, and you can revisit any of those. Now that update that it's just mentioned in there was the QR update, the QR code update. So in any page, you have this squiggly icon up here, and it says share page with QR code. And that is exactly what it will do, and that is how I'm doing it now. I have an app dedicated to do this, but it's just faster to do it this way. So it shows you the URL underneath, and it shows you that you can copy that or you can save it as a download. Now, I usually choose to save it as a download, and the rationale for that is, for me, when it's saved it as a download, I can then reuse that without having to regenerate it. But I guess it's so untaxing to be able to create it that you could just copy it to the clipboard and paste it in. But that is how you share the page with a QR code. I would have said 18 months ago, don't bother. People generally don't know what to do with a QR code. But that's been the method that people have used to log into places with their COVID apps. So now they do understand about QR codes and may be tempted to use a QR code. So now it's got more use than it had then.
Question from Kim.
Okay, what's the question from Kim?
Did you try their new search engine, Neva?
I did. I haven't taken it all the way where I would convert to it yet, but it's pretty good, like everything else with them. So we'll have a look at that down the line. Patricia has an app, IQR, gorgeous customizing options. Well, the one that I use, I've demonstrated before. It's called QR Factory. And the benefit with this one, so let's put MacBites in there. Oh, nice and bizarre. You should just MacBites. No, you're not going to MacBites. You're in a very strange mood. Oh, my extensions are not working in here. Fair enough, we'll type it in then. There we go. There. So this is the one I use, and it does give you the ability to change. You can customize in here. So I usually make it 2000 pixels. So it just, and I save it out as a vector so I can use it. But you can also add an icon and put an icon in the middle. I probably don't have an icon, do I? Have I got something tiny that could be used as an icon? How about that one there? Right. You can change the size of that, and what it's doing is it's putting it in the middle as like branding. So that's actually quite nice. Put a border on it like that as well. You may have to twiddle with that to get it to work because you're covering up part of the code. It can still manage if it can't see all the code. But if you made that as big as this is, then it's covering up too much of the code. So it's a trade-off between having something branded and checking it and make sure that it doesn't stop the code actually working, but you can do that. But it just takes longer to use this. There is the option to batch create in here, multiple QR codes, which I think we have demonstrated. So it's possible I could make that work if I had lots of them to do, but the idea of having it in Vivaldi is that it's just there in front of your face, and that's that. It's just handy. So that's how you actually use it. But what they're trying to do is make it easier for people. One reason is accessibility, but another reason is just people choosing to use the keyboard and not wanting to hunt round for icons. You don't need to have this showing if you don't want. So in the Vivaldi preferences, which we will be looking at all of them, it'll take forever. Right, if I put in their QR code, it takes you to the address bar because it's found the QR code. There is no shortcut key for activating the Maker QR code for the page. I could do. So there's only twice that this is mentioned, right? Either a shortcut key, of which there is none by default, or this checkbox up here. And if you take that tick away, then the option disappears. Now, that's good if you're never ever going to use it, then you don't need it up there, do you? You could take it away if you're going to create a shortcut key. But then the problem is, if you literally can't remember the shortcut key, then you're going to have to go hunting for what that actually is. So right now, we don't have the icon showing and we don't have a shortcut key. And what they were talking about in that update is that quick commands, so let's activate the quick commands. If you put QR, it takes you straight to the command to create a QR code for the active page, irrespective of whether it's in the address bar or whether you have a shortcut to it. So you can just make it more a minimal interface, but still get access to exactly the same features. And in there, as you can see, in fact, I personally think that's a bit better because it's in the middle. But from there, you can copy it, you can save it to the download. So it's exactly the same feature, it's just a different way to access it. And they are loading the quick commands with everything that Vivaldi can do. Now, you see how minimal I have my interface. I would probably leave that turned off because I know that I'm going to use the quick command. And I know you might think, well, move the mouse and click and you're done. True, but I'm more of a keyboard person. So I would find that easier. So they're talking about the fact that they've added it because I think what they're doing is going back through the features that aren't available via the quick commands and adding them in. So I personally think that's good because it gives me one less thing to worry about in the address bar, which I like. And then all you need to do is copy that and then you can paste it in. So if we go to something like text edit that can take a graphic and just paste it in, and there you go, you are good to go. And that's quite a decent size as well to work with. Right, now, when it comes to your quick commands, which is this Command and E, you have complete control over what comes up and how it works. So if we get rid of that, we have a whole section in the preferences dedicated to quick commands. So the first thing to think about, you can change the shortcut of how it works. And the beautiful thing in Vivaldi, it's amazing. If I type into the search in here, quick commands, so quick commands I'm looking for, it will show me quick commands, which is this on the left hand side, it's that section, but it will also show me the keyboard section, which is elsewhere down here. So it's showing me, it's a way of filtering, but showing me every section of this that is relevant where quick command, well, the word quick is mentioned, and filtering out anything that I don't need. Okay. So first things first, quick commands do have a shortcut and the default is Command and E. But shortcuts in Vivaldi, you can have more than one shortcut for each feature. Now that might be overkill, but for example, quick commands has Command and E and F2. If I had a keyboard where the function keys did not need a function key holding down to be function keys, then F2 might be handy, because it's literally just one key. But they by default have put in that there's two keys. Now on Windows, function keys tend to be function keys. On the Mac, they tend to have a dedicated function, like changing the brightness or the volume or playing and pausing and stuff like that. That's stupid. What is that thing called where everything flies out? F3. There's Launchpad. No. That's the one where it's just squares. It looks like a big iPad. But there's another one where it's
oh, well, it flies off the dock.
It flies off the dock. I hate it. Yeah, that.
Turned it off.
Exactly. If it's something Apple-like, I've turned it off. But those are the features that are on those function keys by default. But you can, if you choose, and if you don't know this, I will show you, in the system preferences in somewhere or other, probably keyboard. Let's have a look in here. Use F1, F2, etc. They're the function keys, Apple, as standard function keys. So if you put a tick in that box, all of the special functions like volume up, volume down and all of that disappear. You have to hold the function key down to make them do that. So you could toggle those off if you wanted to make them standard function keys. The reason I don't is the volume. the volume buttons. So I leave them alone. So F2 is no good to me. But point being, it doesn't have to be F2. It could be any key combination in there that makes sense to you. So maybe you're a Windows user and a Mac user, and you got this keyboard shortcut and you're used to using it on Windows. You don't want to change the key on the Mac because sometimes you remember to use that one. But wouldn't it be nice if, irrespective of which keyboard shortcut you threw at it, it knew what to do? And that's what Vivaldi does. So when you look in your keyboard shortcut preferences in here, these are totally separate. It doesn't mean hold Command and E and then press F2 in some kind of twister game. It means either Command and E or F2. But that is what will bring up your quick commands. Now, it's worth making that something that doesn't clash with anything else and something that's better done with one hand, and Command and E can be done with the left hand, and memorising it. Because if you know that shortcut key, you can forget the majority of the other ones. So like if you had a shortcut key of like Control Option Q for a QR code, you're not going to remember that unless you're doing it every day. That's why I don't have in here shortcuts for capture. So if we go to capture page, right, it's in the preferences, the only reference to capture page is these two. And it's on the tab menu. And these are the two shortcuts, and I don't have them because I'm not going to remember them. There's 4 of them and I'm not going to remember them. So I don't bother. I just use that quick command. So that's why quick command is incredibly important. All right, let's head back to quick command. So we'll actually go to it. So we're only looking at this section of the preferences. Right, you can in here add items and take them away. So for instance, I don't have the web search and URL entry, not enabled, but I could go in there. Actually, that's what's underneath. That's what's in here. Have I got any turned off? I don't think I have, actually. No, I don't think I have. But if I didn't want to see any notes coming up, then I just take the tick out of the box. Simple as that. And they're in categories in here. I changed the default. I can't remember what the default is, but I changed it. I wanted the extensions at the top. So that was what we looked at last week. The reason that I want the extensions at the top is if I want to clip that to Evernote, I want that showing at the top. If I didn't have that at the top, if bookmarks were above it, then all of these bookmarks that mentioned something to do with Evernote or whatever, or closed tabs, whatever in there, this is not going to be at the top. I'm going to have to hunt for it, and I don't want to hunt for it. It's too useful to hunt for. So what I've done in mine is move the extensions to the top. That doesn't give me any problem if I'm looking for something else. So let's say I'm looking for the capture command, which isn't an extension, it's a built-in command. There isn't an empty area at the top that says, well, these would be the extensions, but there's none that match what you've typed in. It just ignores them, which enables you to see the commands at the top. So getting these right will save you time down the line. And if you were to sit at another install of Vivaldi and type something in and something else came at the top, you'd be like, whoa, something's not right there. But you might not instantly think, oh, I need to change the order. But that's why I did change the order. I wanted the commands quite high as well. One option, so my commands are there, but because there's no open tabs because there's no extensions that say capture, and obviously the calculator is irrelevant at that point, then the commands come up at the top. So just because you have a tick in these doesn't mean you're automatically forcing this down. It's just a preferred order. So extensions at the top, followed by the calculator. I don't actually think I would need the calculator. But what the calculator does, in here, you have the ability to just type something in. So if we want 10 times that price, it will give you the answer. It will give you other options as well, but the top answer is the answer that you need. And it says press enter to copy. So if I do that, it's copied it. Just so we can see that if I paste it in to Alfred, there's the answer. So it did copy it. Right, the reason that I don't think I need that calculator showing at all is because I use Alfred. Hang on, I'm not going in there. I use Alfred, and in Alfred I can do exactly the same thing. And pressing enter copies that number to the clipboard as well. So I have Alfred to do that, and it's kind of muscle memory. I know that I use Alfred to do that. But if you don't have Alfred and you have no other way to do that, then that's probably a viable thing to leave turned on in there. It's just automatic to me. I use Alfred for that. In fact, I use Alfred quite a lot. I love countdown. I don't like the words, but I love the numbers. So when I'm looking at countdown and I think I've got that, just to prove it to myself, I will go in here and actually start typing it in. So something on countdown could literally look like this, where I've got like, that'd be something like 10 times 7 and then plus whatever, etc. And I've got all these brackets to close as well. But that's me when I'm catching up on countdown. Never watch it live. Can't be doing the adverts. Can't be doing with the words. But the numbers are where it's at. So I'm really, really familiar with using that in Alfred. But if you're not, and you think it would be better in Vivaldi, then you can turn that on in Vivaldi. And that would mean, if I'm looking for one password, and I do that, I'm going to get tabs in there. I've got web panel number 1. I've got extensions here, all kinds of stuff in there, and other things with number 1 in. Somewhere in there we go, at the top is the calculator. So as soon as I've typed 1, if it's one password, then I'm going to need to put the P next to it. But if it's not, if I'm trying to calculate something, then putting in the mathematical operator will start the calculator working. I'm not going to need the calculator, and I'm minimal. If I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to have it there. So I will take the tick out of that now. I left it there to show you guys that you might want it. Right, other things in here. All the bookmarks that you have will be searchable. So any bookmark that you've saved, if you start typing part of the name of that bookmark, it will come up. So it's another way to access the bookmarks. If you remember last week, we had the bookmarks menu, we had the bookmarks bar, we had the bookmarks panel, we had the bookmarks manager. Bookmarks are all over the place. We also can access bookmarks in here. Right, other thing it can search is your notes. Now, notes themselves, we kind of made a brief mention of them, but notes themselves are in here. So the other day, I had this open like this when we were chatting on the live. That's why that one's there. Tomorrow I will have 196 open and the chat will be down there. There are notes. These are the notes. These are Vivaldi notes. Now I handle notes in 2 different ways. I steered away from Vivaldi notes, and that was because at the time my default browser was Firefox, and I used Vivaldi to host Notion. So all of my Notion work went on in Vivaldi. And I thought I wouldn't put notes in a single browser that I wouldn't have access to in any other browser. But now, of course, Vivaldi is my default browser. So I decided I would sort the notes out the way that I always do with a para system. So I have an inbox, then I have project areas, resources and archives. And within these, I have specific things. Now, I said we would come on and we would look at notes. So consider this looking at notes. This is a valid use for the notes. So in resources, I have a folder called Vivaldi. So let's get rid of that. So we're focusing on resources that I have. And in here, I've got Vivaldi. And when I open that up, it says Midnight Orange settings. And when I click on it, I actually have down here an image. And that is my Midnight Orange settings. These are all the values that I need for this. And it's a screenshot. I would also take that and put in here. So let's go in. Are we in there? There we go. I would put in background. And I would actually put in what that number is. So it happens to be 1F, 1F, 1F. And then I would do the same with the foreground and the other ones. Is that one good? It is. It's D3, D9, E3. And carry on for the others. Right, why am I bothering to do that? Because there is no way at the moment, and I must admit I do find this really strange that there is no way to do it. But there's no way at the moment that you can just save a theme and share it. even with yourself. Now, as I've said, there's a dirty hack, and we're looking at dirty hacks next week. So hold your breath for the dirty hack. There is a way to do it, but would I recommend it? I'll tell you next week. But there's a way to do it. But what I've got in here now is everything that I would need. And if I go to a new install, my notes will synchronize. And once my notes have synchronized, I've got access to this information, and then it's a doddle to set it up. So there's a use for the notes themselves. And back in here, when we went into there, we can search for those notes. So I type Midnight Orange, there is a note, and it will take me to it. It would take me to it even if that. Let's go back to where we were in there, close that, get these notes up, Midnight Orange. And there's my note, and it would open up and highlight it for me. So it's really useful for configuration settings. I wouldn't store passwords in there because you don't need to. There is a built-in password manager. But the idea is that if there's anything that is relevant across Vivaldi installations, that's a good way to do it. Obviously, I've got this structured system going. You don't need that. You can just throw notes in there if you want. I wouldn't suggest it because you can always find it. You know, even if these are all folded up, you can search them in here. So even in the notes panel itself, the whole thing is searchable. It's just to make your life that bit easier. So if I am ever forced to what colour is that, it's there and I can see it and I know exactly what it is and I can use that to set it up. But we're talking about searching the notes from the quick commands. So anything you type in here, because there's a tick in the notes box, it's searchable. Even if you just type in orange, there it is. Kimmy's really liking the quick commands. Oh, once you get into it, the quick commands are like, oh, this is Nirvana. So now I can turn off this option, turn off that option, because it's in the quick commands. And you only need to know one shortcut to get there. So would I leave it searching the notes? Probably. But with the notes, just one caveat on the notes, they are Vivaldi only. And because they're Vivaldi only, I do have a plan B. And my plan B is I do have in here Google Keep. And if I put a note in Google Keep, it will be available anywhere I have access to Google Keep. So my iPhone, my iPad, another install, Windows, a computer when I'm out, as long as I'm logged into Google, I have access to my Google Keep notes. You'll notice there are no notes. That's because I use it to transfer things between installs and stuff, there's nothing in there permanently. If there's notes in there at the end of the day or the end of the week, I will process them and put them where they should be. Otherwise, you end up with notes in Evernote and Roam and Notion, Obsidian, you name it. Simple Note, drafts, they're all over the place. And then your biggest problem when you're looking for the information is, which app did I put it in? Not what search string I need to find it, but which app did I put it in? I've got no recollection whatsoever. So I always tidy that one up. I could put on there Simple Note, which is another one. I actually have the app installed for that, but you can get to it in a browser and you'll see that the notes in here are like, welcome to Simple Note, and there's a new blank note, which I constantly keep deleting and it constantly brings them back. But there's no notes of mine. Why do I bother with it? It's cross-platform. So if I have to work on Windows, there's a client for Simple Note for Windows, and all I need to do is log in and I've got access to my notes, which I don't have if I'm working in drafts. So I much prefer drafts to either Google Keep or Simple Note, but neither of they both work on Windows and my preferred app doesn't work on Windows. So I need a seamless way that I can work on Windows without having to stop and think, what do I do now? Which app do I do? I'll write it down by hand in my notebook. That's another place it could go and die somewhere. So I already have in place the alternatives if I'm forced to work on a different platform. Okay, so what else do we have in here in our quick notes? Our quick commands. Our browsing history, so I do have it searching that. Page actions, so do you want to close the page, open pages, do things with pages, basically. And I have it doing that as well. In addition to putting the tick in here or taking the tick out, like the calculator, you also have the opportunity to move things up and down. So you could move that up, you could move that down. So I have deliberately chosen this as the order for these things. Then you've got options where it keeps the last typed value. Now, that's fairly obvious. At the moment, every time you go into it, so if I were to put MacBites, there'll be loads of MacBites stuff in there, right? And I click away and I bring it back up, it's empty. Right, Alfred does this. See, it remembered simple note. It's an option, you can toggle it off. But if I was to put in here, what have we got in here? Let's say Camtasia, right? And then come out of it and go back into it, it remembers it. And that's what we're talking about. Does it remember the last command? I've said no, but if we put a tick in the box and we go in here and we bring it up and we type MacBites, and we do actually have a tab, which is this tab. When I go back into it, oh, you should remember that. Why are you not remembering it? Oh, it doesn't like that. Maybe I need to restart, and I'm not about to restart now. I might need to restart for that one to work. But that is the top option we have there. So I don't particularly want that. Do I want to open links in a new tab or the current tab? So if I type a link in, do I want it in this tab or a new tab? And put a tick in there and you'll get a new tab. Then whether you want to open the bookmarks if the nicknames match. Now, if you've forgotten, every bookmark has a set of properties in Vivaldi. So in here we have our bookmarks. And what have we got? Let's save this one. There we go. That's an idea. Let's save this one. So this one is I'm saving MacBites. And there's an option for a nickname. So if I call that FM or MFM for MacBites and I save that, we will have that just in the inbox, right? And I save it and we get up a new tab entirely and I type in MFM. You see it's got a nickname and you can load that in from the nickname. So what this is saying in here is, do you want to open the bookmarks if the nicknames match or not? And that would depend on what that actually was. Then you can open the notes in the Notes Manager or just that sidebar. So if we say that, let's see if it'll work without a restart. And let's close that down. Get into the quick commands and look for orange. There's our note. That one didn't need a restart. So this is the Notes Manager. This is the more fully fledged view that you have from the sidebar. So you have an option whether you open it in the sidebar or whether it opens a completely new tab with the notes in it or not. I would go for the sidebar, and that way I don't lose the page that I'm on or have to navigate back to the page that I'm on. So the only one that I have in there is to limit the number of visible search results so it doesn't go crazy. Right, that is what you have for quick commands. It does get a little bit more complicated than that with command chains, but we're not going to look at that today, or we're never going to get to history. But basically a command chain is where you create a sequence of steps that you would like the quick command to perform in a sequence. So for instance, I think this was one that shipped with it. So you go into here and you say, you give it a name, and then you give it command number 1 and pass it any parameters. So I'd like you to open a tab. This is the link. I'd like you to open another tab. This is the link. I'd like you to open a third tab. This is the link. Then I'd like you to wait for 150 nanoseconds, which isn't that long, and then select the previous tab and the previous tab, another delay, and then stack the tabs and tile them vertically. So it's like writing a macro. How useful that would be, I don't know. It depends how often you want to tile things like that, have them all pre-configured. I did have a go with it, and what I wanted it to do, it didn't seem to be too happy with. But that is an example of a command chain. So that one's open, links and tile.
Question.
Yeah.
If you accidentally close a tab, is there a way to open it straight up again?
Absolutely. So if we were in here and we opened a tab, so let's have a look, where should we go this time? Let's have a look on Dropbox. There we go, there's my Dropbox. Right, if I inadvertently close that, so I've just closed it. There's two ways to do it. One works in every browser, okay? You've got Command, Shift and T, and that will bring you back the last tab. That works in every browser. Command Shift and T. And basically it's like undo. There was one browser, was it Safari? That was the odd one out. You had to use Command and Z, undo, which I could never remember it. I had to remap it. So Command Shift and T will always open you the last tab that you've closed. But if you want, so let's open a few here. Let's do the Dropboxy thing. And let's do the My Blog thing. And go on, off you toddle. No, I didn't want a new window, wanted a new tab. And the MacBites thing. Right. So at this point, we've got 4 tabs. And we're going to close the MacBites one, close My Blog, and close Dropbox. Right. If I Command Shift and T, I'm going to get Dropbox back. But that isn't actually the one I wanted. I actually wanted my blog. You can do that because you can Command Shift and T, Command Shift and T, Command Shift and T, and so forth, back as far as you like. So that will work, but it's not exactly efficient, is it? So let's close them again, because down here you have the trash can, the magic trash can. And when you click on that, it will show you all the pages that you have had open, 100 of them. And you can go straight to the one that you want from there. So these were things I was doing before. Let's have a look. All sorts. I was doing something in Otter. I was reading this stuff. That's something that I'm looking at for next week. And what that has actually done, it's opened it up in exactly the same place it was before. So it's there in a different window. It even knows that. But the trash can, now my trash can is on the left hand side at the bottom, but if your tabs are going across the top, your trash can will be in the top right. And it gives you access to the last 100 pages that you've closed. So you have 2 distinct options. If it was the last one, Command Shift and T. If you want to go back through your history and like load, then that's Command Shift and T, Command Shift and T, and just keep doing it. But to give you precise access to a particular page in here, just fine. Oh, look at all these books that I bought. Naughty me. Oh, there's all sorts of stuff in there. What else was I looking at? That was one that I was looking at. And again, that was ages ago. But I can get to it straight away, just from that list. So that list is invaluable. Okay? You don't see a trash can. Right, is the trash can turned on? So can you see your tabs and are they across the top? Let me know that. Peter's just looking at websites with Vivaldi. That's the last thing you do with them.
That's like just using your Apple Watch to see what time it is.
It is, isn't it? It can do so much. But somebody is on the slippery slope, aren't they, Mike? Somebody...
I'm keeping quiet.
Yes, I would if I were you. Somebody's not pushing Vivaldi virtually at all. Right, have we ascertained if it's there? Right, your tabs are at the top. I will put my tabs at the top, and then you'll see where it is.
Carol doesn't see a trash can.
Yes, I know. We've just talked about that, Mike. Have you in a different time zone again? No, she's got it now, you see. It's over on the right. Let me put these round, and then we'll see where they are. There they are at the top. And then it's right at the top, as high up as you can go. And next to that, you've got your syncing service to telling you what you've got open. So I've got 1 tab open in Serenity, which is my other iMac, and 19 tabs open on Angel, which is my MacBook Air. So it's showing me all of that in the sync. And there is the list. So there we go. But mine's just at the bottom because I have the tabs on the left. So 2 ways to do that. Right, where was I at that point? Oh, I was going to try it, wasn't I? I was going to try that command thing, which is called Open Links and Tile. Right, let's give it a go. Let's get rid of that and give it a go. Open Links and Tile. And see what happens? In the command chains option here, you get that command chain. You can either click it or whatever you want. So if you want to have 3 tabs open and you do this like frequently. So one that would actually be relevant for me would be on a Saturday night when I have the spreadsheet open. So I have the spreadsheet open for Brooklands. And I also have other pages open. So I could configure my own command chain to actually do that. Shall we do it? Shall we do it and see? Did it actually give you the size? I don't think it does. No, it doesn't give you an option. It might work, might not. But in essence, what you've got is 3 pages. These are the 3 pages that were configured in here. So if you wanted different pages, you could do that. So for a start, if I cloned that command, but I called that something different, like MacBites Live, in here, instead of that, I would want my MacBites window. So there's MacBites. In this one, I would want MacBites FM. So put that in and change it to FM. And in this one, I might want Apple or something. Mind you, there's not much to see from Apple, is there? There we go. So I've changed those. The rest of it's identical, but I've changed those. And I've called it MacBites Live. So get the commands up and put on there MacBites Live, if I could spell MacBites Live. And it's not finding it. There we go, MacBites. Oh, what have I done here? Crying out loud. MacBites Live. That's what I'm looking for. It's a good job it knows, doesn't it? So if I do that, there you go. It's opened them up as well as all of the others. So I'd need to stop that happening, wouldn't I? Because we definitely don't want that. Has it put this in 1 window or 2? Where are we at? Where are we at? Oh, and it's stacked them as well. There's the stack there. Right, probably because I'm in that window. So what I'll do is I will come out of that and we will get a new window, which doesn't have any of that. Bring it up and do it again. MacBites Live. There's the pages. You can see they're stacked at the side. So it told them to put it in a stack, open them up. I can get rid of that. And there's my 3 pages. So yeah, I could see a use for that, would depend. Also notice that when you do this, you change the view automatically of the page. So these 2 obviously have the same theme, but now it's showing it you up here. This is the back end of WordPress. But what you can see there is the menu that is usually across the top is now down the side, and that's because it thinks it's on an iPad because of the width of it. So be aware of that. But yes, that will actually work. So Kim says, my problem is I've dedicated Vivaldi to Notion, so I don't use it as I should. I think I need to dedicate another browser to Notion. I tried that, I must be honest. And in the end, I thought, do you know what? If Notion's like central to your workflow, etc., just pin the Notion tabs and be done. And that's what I've done. So my actual page, is it you? It is. This is my working browser. So I've just opened that, but I've also got this new Vivaldi page and the Pigma page, which I can now close. I fancy watching Happy Valley again, so I've left that open. But this bit here above the line is indicating what is pinned. These are my pinned tabs. Now, normally there wouldn't be so many. The reason that I've got more pinned tabs, the top one is Rome. And I had a separate app for Rome. And I realised once I got Vivaldi to the point of how efficient it is now, it made no sense to have that separate. So I then decided I would try Rome in a tab, and you'll notice that's the top one. Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 will take me straight to those tabs. So by pinning them, they're always there and I know where they are. Now, I wouldn't normally have my mail and my calendar in 2 tabs, but mail plane's just been deprecated. So once it's gone, I'm going to have to get used to that. So I decided I would test it out for a week. And I'm quite used to it. So I know if I Command and 2, I go to my mail, and Command and 3, and I go to my calendar. The rest of these are Notion. All of those are Notion. So the flight deck is Notion. The comms we were sending out. I've got last week's show and this week's show. And obviously in the middle of the Scrivener series. And I still have the Ship 30 open because that's actually complete. So my Ship 30 in here there's all my essays for August in there. So I'm referring back to these and completing it. I stopped putting the tweets in because, life was too short. But everything for that is in there. So that's why that one is actually open. And all of the others up there. So I hear you, Kim. That's exactly where I was. And that was what stopped me for so many weeks actually switching to Vivaldi. Until in the end, it was like, you just need to switch, girl. Never mind the Notion thing. We'll work it out. And I did contemplate putting Notion somewhere else. But actually what I've ended up creating here, and the more you've got shortcut keys to do it, and the more that you can use your quick commands to switch between tabs. So if I wanted to get to the flight deck and I didn't actually know where it was, there you go. And I'd be straight to the flight deck because I've got an open tab at the top, but I've also got a bookmark to it. So either way, I would get to the flight deck. I think if you nominate another browser and you put Notion in it, I think you'll find yourself frustrated that you haven't got all of the benefits of Vivaldi. So try pinning the tabs first and see if that works and give that a go. Oh, Patricia is loving the pin feature for 4 different emails and the social media accounts and website. Excellent. I love the pinning as well. I mean, I just have that open all the time. All the time. I do try and be very restricted with how many I have below it. Sometimes I'm better at that than others. And I do try as well. Once I've dealt with this Ship 30 thing, then that'll get closed. This one won't get closed, which is last week's show. But what will happen is that will be switched and that will have next Tuesday's MacBites in it. This one will be switched back. So in here, that one will go to there, which is where it usually is. Hang on, I've moved the wrong one. Okay, let's get you back. That one will go back to MacBites 2.0, which is what I always have up there. So I start with the flight deck. Then I've got 2.0. What happens on a Saturday night is even more interesting. So what will happen on a Saturday night is I will open that up in a tab. And that will be down there. I will go to... Oh, no, actually, it's not that one. No, it's not that one. Right, let's close that and get another one. So I would just open up a tab. And on my speed dial, I would be going to the Brooklands by request spreadsheet, which is here. Now, I need to see that all night. So there's our technology for tomorrow. There's last week's. So there's last week's with all of the stories in here. So that's how we do it. So when I say he's ticked the wrong thing off, he's ticked something off I've not actually played yet. So it dims out. If these are ticked, it dims out to grey. So I need to see that. But I also need to do things while I'm playing the music. So what I do with this, and I'm not going to use the mouse to do it, I'm going to use a command, is I pin it. So you can pin and unpin a tab. Now it's pinned, but it's pinned at the bottom. So I take that one on a Saturday right to the top. And that way, if I'm in here and I'm looking at something else and the music's coming to an end, I just command and 1, I'm back where I need to be, and then I can carry on working. When I'm done, I now need that to go away. And if I command and W, it doesn't close this tab. It would close one of these at the bottom. So if that's open and I command and W, it closes it. But if I'm on a pin tab, I have it set. So I'm doing it. You can see it flashing, but nothing's happening. And that's because I've got it so I don't inadvertently close a pin tab and then think, oh no, I need that back. But I do actually want to close this one. So this is how I do it. I use the commands and I put pin. That will unpin it and then I can command and W it. So I could even create a command for that. I could create a command chain for that does 2 things. But I mean, it's short enough I don't need to. So I think if you think about the pin tabs and do put the separator between them, I think you might be okay with that. I think we did look at the separator and where that was because Kim wanted to actually do it. So you will find that in the tabs, which is extensive. It is somewhere down here, right at the bottom. Show the separator below the pin tabs. So that is underneath Ship 30. But if you take that away, you cannot tell at that point which ones are pinned and which ones aren't, until you hover over them. If they're not pinned, you'll see there's a close option on the left. And when you come up to there, there isn't. But once I spotted that option, I thought, I do want to know where the pin tabs are. So I actually turned that on. I know you're losing, in effect, an entire line, but I never want to have that many tabs open. They go below the fold anyway. Otherwise, I just... spatial awareness goes and I'm lost. So that's how I do it. And I've done what Kim's doing, and I totally understand the reasoning behind it. But I've gone the other way by having the pin tabs and having the commands, the quick commands, and having the ability to pin and unpin with a keyboard shortcut rather than playing around. I've not only put Notion with all my other tabs, but I've also put Roam and my email and my calendar in there as well. And it's working. It's okay. But the separator's just, I couldn't live without it. Don't want to live without the separator. Kim loves the separator as well. Awesome. Patricia's Mac Mini's getting hot. Is this a new one or an old one? Are the pins actually open and taking up memory? You can control the memory usage on the pin tabs, etc. I think it does very well. If we look at how we're going here. Activity monitor. Where's activity monitor gone? Right. Obviously Wirecast doing its best to melt the machine, but that's because it's broadcasting. But in terms of where Vivaldi is, right down the bottom, under loads of other stuff. So PowerPoint, that you can't even see at the moment, is taking up over twice as much processor power. So it really doesn't make that much difference. If I had Chrome open, Chrome would probably be sitting right under Wirecast, going mental with itself, having a page, an entry in here per tab, and using like 50% of the system resources. But no, Vivaldi's only using 1.3 with everything that I've got open. I think I've got 2 windows open at the moment and about 20 odd tabs. So I think it's okay. I don't have performance problems. Every now and then, and it's happened maybe twice in the last 8-9 months, I feel it's sluggish and I restart Vivaldi and then that problem's gone. So other than, and now I pretty much only restart Vivaldi if I'm installing a new version, because one, I don't need to, and two, performance-wise, I don't need to. But the second reason is because it's doing so much, I'm pretty much using it all the time. You know, I'm either looking at my mail, I'm looking at my calendar, I'm trying to make arrangements for something, or I want to look at my daily notes in Roam, or I want to look at where I'm at with the show. So I pretty much live in Vivaldi. If there was a such thing, you know, like a Chromebook as a Vivaldi book, I could live inside one and be quite happy. Google Chrome is a nightmare. There's just no holding Google Chrome back. I know they're trying to do things with it, and there are extensions that you can get and use which suspend the tabs. I had a great one called the Great Suspender, and they kicked it out of the store. Either the developer sold it, somebody bought it, something happened, and they decided they didn't trust it anymore, and they kicked it out the store. And at that point, you know, all the tabs that you've got open, and you've also got other things in Vivaldi, which I'm going to put down for next week, because we've looked at bookmarks. I definitely remember we looked at bookmarks, and I said I would talk about sessions. So what you can do in Vivaldi is, if you are trying to focus on Project A, you could create a session of stuff for Project A and another session for stuff of Project B. And it separates it out. You can close these tabs. You can then open them as a group. You can manage multiple windows. So we'll definitely look at sessions. I don't know whether we're going to have 1 more week of this or 2 more weeks of this, because we need to look at sessions. We need to look at history, and then we need the rest of the settings. But I think the one to focus on this week, where if you're configuring your own, is the quick commands. Try and find as many quick commands as you can to work with, and you'll find life's a whole lot faster. But 40% is a bit excessive. Now 60. I wouldn't have expected to be using that much. How much memory have you got? But it's way better than Google Chrome. Way, way better. And this thing that we'll look at next week, which is sessions, that will show you how you can manage it even better. So as good as it is, you can even make it better if you need to. Just depends on how you work. But we will look at that next week. So is that it for questions on that? I'd say 60%. It can cope and it doesn't matter, depending on what else you've got running. But once you start running other things, something will push it over the edge. So if I started expecting this machine to do anything else right now, on top of everything it's already doing, it could be too much. In which case, you think the problem is the app you're working with. So let's say I got 7 more broadcast applications up and running, and they took it to 100%. I then come into Vivaldi and I open one more tab and the machine starts to really slow down, and I think it's Vivaldi, but it's not. So that's why the activity monitor should give you some indication if something's not right. If you've never seen the activity monitor, this is just showing you, I've got this in how much CPU is it using mode. But I've got all sorts running in here. I mean, Scrivener's using nothing. It's open, but it's using nothing. Cloud Mounter's using nothing. And most of the stuff is using nothing. What is using stuff, like this is the Windows server. So at the moment it's juggling Windows now, and that's using quite a bit. The fans are on, but not noticeably at the moment. But you can see it's jumping about and it's not using that much. Now, I will caveat that with, in terms of it shuffling things around, I do have a lot of memory. I've got 128 gig of memory. So it's probably behaving itself a little bit better, but that's not memory usage, that's CPU. Memory usage wise, yeah, that's using quite a bit. This is using a lot of memory. That is the Camtasia recorder, so I would expect that too. I would expect things like PowerPoint to be using a lot. In terms of Wirecast, it's not using much in the way of memory, neither is Audio Hijack, but certain things use different parts of the system depending on what it's actually doing. So it depends. It could well be that Vivaldi's being pushed because something else is running. There are 30 helpers going. Why? Is that mine or yours? I've got loads of stuff going on here, but then I'm doing quite a bit, aren't I? 30 tabs. You feel better with only 28. I sometimes get up to like sort of 70 or 80, and what they are things that I want to read, and then when I've read them I'll close them down. So I go through an application and I click open. So something like an RSS reader. They're opened in Vivaldi, and then I go through and I read them and close them down. So on average, what you're looking at now is an average day. Probably 2 to 3 extra tabs in addition to the core tabs that I always have open. But if you're in any doubt, close it down, open it up again, and see what the difference is. I do actually have, is it 2 windows? How many windows have I got open? 3. I've got 3 windows open. And it's still only using 1.something%. So I don't have a problem performance-wise with it, but let me know if you do. Oh, Renee's got 6 tabs. 6 is good. 6 is about right. And as I say, I don't normally have that many pinned, but at the moment I do. So, put any questions in that you've got while we head off.
There's a question in there.
Is there a question? Okay. Do the helpers sleep when you down... Do you mean close down, Vivaldi?
Minimise, probably.
When you want to use Scrivener. Do I need to... You should be okay with both of those. I use both of those. Both of those are running right now. So everything that you're asking your machine to do, mine is doing right now, as well as broadcasting, as well as recording the screen, and as well as recording the audio. So despite the fact of how much more memory I've got, it's not like it's not in use. So I would say you should be all right. But you know your own machine best. Does it feel sluggish? Is it right? Yes, there's an application, an extension called OneTab, and that will let you close them down. But to be honest, in Vivaldi, you don't need it because you've got sessions. So we will look at sessions next week. But for the moment, I have some freebies for you. I do. They're available today till the 24th from Envato Marketplace. You will need an account, but it is a free account. So you can get a totally free account. We know this because Mike's got one. So there is a collection of items available. There's 6 of them. The business presentation is really nice. And the music thing's quite nice as well. I'm not sure where I'd use the Stickman 3D model, but, never say never. So I thought I'd show you what we've actually got with that. And that happens to be open in another tab, another window. There it is. So that's what we've got. But I had them all open in separate windows as well. So there is a pencil sketch of a bird. I don't think I could draw anything like that, but there you go. The Stickman, the model man. Maybe you can put clothes on him in things. A bit like with MacBites Siri. That is an image that is available. This is the one that I was talking about, which is the presentation, which is very nice. There are lots of useful slides in there. It is a Keynote file, but you can open the Keynote file in Keynote because Keynote's free, and then save it to PowerPoint if you want, and everything goes through. So lots and lots of useful stuff in there. I'm liking that, like the colours of it as well. Then there's this Instagram promo thing. And finally, there is some music, which if I played, you wouldn't hear it, so I'll leave it alone. But it's for an action movie. So Renee, who I know likes his video, might find a use for that. You never know. So those are the items. They're only available for the next couple of days. And you only need a free account. Mike will put the link in for that. Right, it's time for Mike to do the lambada.
Not till I've pressed the button.
Who doesn't want to see Mike do the lambada?
Right. 3, 2,
don't all chomp
1.
at the bit with that one. Oh, Peter means he's got one tab open. Good grief, the only man with one tab open.
Even I've got 2.
No, this extension's called One Tab, and it takes all of your tabs. So it's got like boss mode. So imagine that you're there and you've got 47 tabs open with things that you shouldn't be looking at, like the football, and the boss is about to walk behind you, and you use this one shortcut key and everything disappears, and then like an Excel spreadsheet pops up, and all the tabs you had open are in this list, so you can reopen them. Right, so lambada time. Let's get Mike's screen shared. And over to you, Mike.
Okay. Third and final part of lambada, or lambda, or lambanana, or whatever you want to call it. Super lambanana. Right. First week we did basics of what lambda is. Second week I introduced you to some brand new functions that Microsoft have added into Excel. They are actually just normal worksheet functions, but they use a lambda function inside them. So I showed you by row last week, which I'm going to do a recap of. Then I'm going to show you by col, and then I'm going to show you scan. Okay. So as a recap, if I go to the sheet called Report 2, you may remember this from last week. I created a lambda function called payment due, and if you want to see that function, you go up to the name manager and click on edit, and it will show you the name of the function, and it will show you the lambda function that is associated with it. So when you use equals payment due in a cell and you provide a single parameter, what it's doing behind the scenes is doing a calculation based on what's in that refers to box. So the idea is that I can go to a cell and I can just type equals payment due, specify the cell reference that's got the date in it, and it will do magic, and then just copy the formula down. But instead of doing that, I showed you another way to do it, and that's what I just want to recap. So it was the by row function. What you do is you go to a cell and you type equals by row, open brackets, and that function takes 2 parameters. The first parameter is an array or a range, and in this case it's going to be a range that contains dates, and that's because the function, which is the payment due function, does some magic calculations on dates, or magic beans to use your phrase. So select the range or the array as they call it, then put your comma in, and then put the name of the function. close the brackets and enter. And because what that function is doing is adding 30 onto the date, each one of those dates is the original date in column A plus 30. So all the logic is done behind the scenes and wrapped up inside the payment due function. It's the by row function is one of these new dynamic array functions. So when you click onto the cell, it puts a border around the cells that have got the actual functions in. I only had to put the function in one cell and it automatically rippled down. And then as you go onto those other cells, the function is there, but it's grayed out. So you can only edit or delete that one, and then it ripples through to all the others. Okay, so because I said as the first parameter A5 to A26, it automatically copies down from C5 to C26. We can do the same thing here. Equals by row, open brackets. That is the array. Well, let's say I only did those 6 there, or those 5 there. Then a comma. Then the name of the function that I want it to perform on those 5 cells. Close the brackets and enter. Why have we got a name? Because I mistyped the name of the function. So let's spell that correctly. And you can see it just goes down as far as row 9, because that's what I specified as the range or the array. I can't then just copy it down. Well, I can copy it down, but it doesn't actually do anything. What I'd need to do is go back to the first cell and change this range here to be referencing that block there. And then it's going to copy all the way down. So the number of times it copies down is based on the size of the range that I specify there. But that one is by row. And the reason it's by row is because each one of these values is on a separate row. You might think it's by column because it's a column of dates or a column of numbers, but each one is on a separate row. So that's by row. Another one that I want to show you and introduce you to tonight is by col, which is very similar to by row, but it works in columns rather than rows. So I guess you could say it's a bit like VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So let's go on to sheet 4. And what I've got here is I've got a 10-year revenue forecast for our fictitious company, Unicorn Clothing Company. But I haven't put the unicorn icon on today. Now, row 16. Row 16, you would normally just add up rows 3 to 14 and then copy across. So I'd do something like this. Equals sum, open brackets, select those cells there, close brackets and enter, and then copy the formula across, and we get the total revenue for each one of those years. But then if I decided to add in 2032 and copy, well, I will copy those those numbers across, only because I don't want to sit and type in 12 new numbers. So just pretend that the numbers in column L are different to the numbers in column K. I'm going to have to manually copy that formula across. That's because when we add more data, it doesn't automatically update this formula here. It doesn't copy that formula across. Let's just delete all of those. So doing it the manual way, although it's one of those things that people are familiar with, it's not going to be automated, whereas doing it the way I'm going to show you, you could automate it, but I'll delete those. So instead of doing it that way, I'm going to use the by col function, which is like the by row function on its side, very much like VLOOKUP is HLOOKUP on its side, and vice versa. So I'm going to go to B16 and put equals by col, open brackets, and then I specify an array, and then I specify a function. Okay, but I haven't actually got a function set up. Now, you can either directly type the function into the cell, or you can set up a Lambda function. So I'll do that. I'll actually set up a Lambda function, because that's what I've shown you over the last couple of weeks, how to actually define a Lambda function through the name manager. So we'll continue down that route. So I'll go to the name manager, create a new name, which is going to turn into a function, and call it sum1. You could call it sum, but of course there is the built-in sum function. So if you do want to name your lambdas the same as a built-in function, you can do. But obviously it's not recommended, so that's why I'm calling it sum1. I guess I could call it suml for some lambda, because, you know, functions have weird and wonderful names like VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. And when you look at DAX, there is sum and there is sum X. So why not suml? Nothing wrong with that. So I'm creating a function called suml, and the inner workings, if you like, of the function are going to be equals lambda, open brackets. Then I need a variable, and in this case I'm actually doing a sum function, but I'm creating my own sum function. Now when you do a sum function, you just specify a range, so I just need one variable to represent the range. And yes, I could call that variable x, but we had a discussion about that last week, didn't we?
Yes, and you got reprimanded.
I did. So I'm going to call it RNG, as in range. Then a comma, and then the calculation itself to do the sum, which is actually using the built-in sum function, open brackets, RNG, close brackets. And then I need a final close bracket to close the lambda. Bracket blind, as you say.
And the teeth.
And the teeth, I was just going to say that myself. Okay, so click on OK. So I now have this function called suml. Now I don't want to use the suml function on its own. I want to use the suml function inside the by col function. So equals by col, open brackets, specify the range that I want it to look at, comma, and then suml. So it's actually going to perform the suml function on each one of those cells. Now, hang on a minute, I don't want B3 to B14. I want B3 to K14. In fact, it's, yeah, B3 to K14, I think. Why doesn't it like that? I've got a function called suml, so there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just go into that suml function. Equals lambda RNG sum RNG. Am I missing a closing bracket? Don't think I am. Equals sum equals lambda RNG comma sum open brackets RNG. That all looks okay to me. So equals by col B3 to K14 sum L, right.
I would have a look, but my view of your screen is that tiny. It looks like a postage stamp.
Okay, I'm going to change its name to sum1, which it doesn't like. Okay, try sum X.
This is going from bad to worse, Mike.
It is.
In terms of naming.
Yeah.
Once you dig the X's out.
It worked in rehearsals, I know that.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Yes. Right.
Go bin it and start again.
I'm going to bin it and start again. Equals by col, open brackets. Then specify the range, which is B3 to K14, then a comma, then the name of the function, which is sum, close brackets. And it's still, hang on, it's sum x, isn't it now? It still doesn't like it. But put sum x.
Do you want to come back to that one next week?
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it slightly differently.
I know what you could do. Dance the lambada. Take the mind off it.
I could do, yeah. No,
Kim said, please, please do.
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. I'm going to do it slightly differently. So, insert a table, and the table is going to go from from column B this time. So B2 to K14. Okay. I also want to just take all the built-in formatting off it. That's better. And name the table forecast. You can call the table anything you like, but I'll call it forecast. And then I'm going to create a function down here. So equals by col, open brackets, then the name of the table, which is forecast, open square brackets, followed by all, which I want it to perform the function on all the columns. That's why I put all, and then put the name of the function, which was sum x. And there it is, sum x. Oh, I really don't get this. I really don't get this.
Kim says it makes her feel better, so don't worry about it.
I'm not worried about it. I'm just wondering why it's not working.
Because it's live, Mike.
Yes, because it's live. Right, okay. Let's edit the function. And let's delete what it refers to and try it again. So it references equals lambda, open brackets, RNG, comma, sum, open brackets, RNG, close bracket, close bracket. And it's worked.
Yay!
Hey, I must have mistyped something there when I set the function up. It would have worked without the table, but I was going to do the table anyway, because the point of creating the table is if I go over and do, say, 2032, which isn't that many years away, is it? And then I just put some numbers in there, and I will copy those numbers and paste the numbers in from the other column to save me typing. It's now automatically updated the total for column L. So what I've done is I've created a by col function. I've referenced all the columns in the table, and I've applied a named function to all the columns. So the function name is sum x. So that's the by col function. And the other function that I wanted to show you was the scan function. The scan function is very useful for automatically generating a running total. So what I've got here is I've got the months of the year and I've got the revenue for each month, but I'm not gone all the way to December because we're only part way through the year. And for the first month, I would just need to make a reference to column B on that row. I can't say B plus A. Sorry, I can't say row 2 plus row 1 because we've got text in column C of row 1. So I need to do a separate formula for the first one. And then for the second one, I can say the current month plus the previous year to date, and then copy that down. Okay, and what that will do is that will give us a year to date, and what it's doing is it's just adding the current month's revenue to the year to date so far. So 400 plus 600 is 1,000, 500 plus 1,000 is 1,500, and so on. That's all a bit messy, so I could replace that with a function, and the function I'm going to use is the scan function. But before I do that, I'm going to create another Lambda function. So click on New, and I'll call this function YTD, which it's already put in there because it's looking at the cell directly above where my cursor is. But what that function is going to do is going to be a lambda function, and I need two variables because I'm adding two numbers up here. So I could call them v1 and v2, can call them anything I like, which is marginally better than x and y. So I'll stick with v1 and v2. And then the actual calculation will be v1 plus v2. So I'm just adding those two numbers up and click on OK. I've entered too few arguments, have I? Equals lambda, open brackets, v1, v2, v1 plus v2. That looks okay to me. What is wrong with that? Let's just cancel that and do it again. YTD equals lambda, open brackets, v1. Unless you can't use v1 because it's a cell reference. So let's stick with the tried and trusted x and y. And let's put x plus y. Yeah, see it like that. I think v1 and v2 it doesn't like because they're cell references. There you go, learn something.
See, the more we know, the
learn
more
something
we grow.
every day, yes. Exactly. Right, so now I've got that function created. What I'll do is in C2 I will put equals scan, which is the name of one of these new functions. The initial value is 0 because I want to start with a 0 because, you know, at the beginning of the year there's no sales. The array I want it to look at is those cells there, and the function that I want it to perform on each of those cells is the YTD function. And there we go. Once you've set it up, that is much quicker. It's just the setup of the Lambda functions. And, you know, I've said that across the whole 3 weeks. Lambda is one of these things that is so new. And many people will just say, well, it's easier just to do it the old-fashioned way. But I'm sure as time goes on, there will be many more sort of use cases and many improvements to it that it will become a kind of normal way of working. So that is it. That is my 3-week look at the cutting edge of Lambda. So cutting edge that I got the brackets in the wrong place. Okay, I'll pass back to you.
Kim says she needs this.
You need Lambda.
Yeah.
Why do you need Lambda?
For her fight with the HOA.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. I need to come out of this, don't I? Because we're not doing anything like that. No, we're doing that. Okay. Let's get back to over here. And it's Scrivener. It's time for Scrivener. Today, it's quite exciting today. It's a writer's den today. When we work, we all have preferences for how we work, whether our tabs are pinned, and whether we have light or dark mode or whatever. But probably nobody wants to work like this. You want something that works for you. What works for you might not work for me, but we're all aiming for something that's a nice place to work. Partly that'll be the fonts that you use, the size that you have it, where you have the panels placed in Scrivener. But there's a lot more that you can do, so let's go and have a look at it. Oh, so much. Right, so we've looked last week at formatting the text. We still have styles to look at, but in relation to how we want the text to look while we're editing it, what follows neatly on from that is what the rest of the interface looks like when we're editing it. So I think all the while we've been looking at Scrivener, we've been staring at that. And last week, just at the end, I said, this is what we're going to look at next week. And it was within the preferences, and down at the bottom, you can manage the view. So you can have themes. Themes don't impact where things are in the interface. We looked at that, if you remember, when we looked at layouts. You have default layouts, 3 panel layouts, corkboard layouts, and we created 2 demo layouts. The layouts are how Scrivener displays the information that you've put in there. What we're talking about now is the actual, not the placement, but how those individual panels look. So at the very end, I said you can load themes. And there were some themes like Purple Haze, if you remember. So we loaded Purple Haze and had a look at it. It does take its sweet time to load, does this. Now that's actually loaded now. So over here our notes that were yellow were now... It's quite a subtle one, this. I see a lot of ladies using this for romance novels, and they go absolutely crazy with what the interface looks like. But if that helps them get in the mode for what they're writing, then amazing. There was also dark themes, so we had a couple of dark themes, and it tells you that it's going to change, which, yes, it will, quite considerably. But solarized is quite nice. I don't think I would want to look at it, because this that I've got here is like, it's brown. I don't want brown. But you can be much more granular than this. So this is really the nuclear option. I'm switching it from theme A to theme B. But you can be more subtle than this. So what I would suggest you do is load in the default interface. Let me know, have you changed anything in the interface if you're using Scrivener? Let me know. Why is this not resetting itself? Come on, I said reset yourself, didn't I? Load the theme. Load the default. Reset both. Reset the light mode. Yeah, reset the lot. Come on. That's good. Can't get out of it. Interesting. Should we try a different one and then go to default? See what happens. That wasn't that much. That wasn't tricky, was it? Let's try solarize light. Yeah, okay. It does take its sweet time. Now that's more subtle. So what I'm about to show you is how you can be very granular with this, if I can ever get it back to the default. Right, we're back to the default. Right, before you start playing, make sure that you have a copy of the default. So where it says load theme in here, what we're looking at is saving the theme. Now, there's lots of different ways to do this. So, okay, Patricia, we will see you next time. Can't see the screen at 144. Right. What you've got options for in here is 2 different things. The top 3 options relate to preferences. The bottom 5 options relate to the theme. So the top 3 options, the preferences are the font that you've chosen and the size that you've chosen, and basically everything that you've put in all of these settings in here. In not only the ones across the top, but also the groupings down below as well. So everything that you have configured in here in terms of behaviours and appearances and all of that is what you're saving when you save the preferences. So what I do is save the preferences to a file. So you can see in here, this is the data for today's show. I'm actually going to put a date and time on there. And now I know that that's when I saved those. The other thing I do is to save the theme, but I save it to a file. And I make sure that the file is on a cloud service somewhere. And then I can always go back because I'm about to make some changes. Now, you'll notice when I did the save theme to file, there's an option in here for exactly what gets saved. So if you don't want the header bar font saving or the corkboard font, you can take the ticks away. To me, it makes sense to have a tick in everything and back the lot up, just in case. So that's what I do with it, and we've now got a backup. Right. Also in here, you can load the theme from a file, or you can load the theme from within Scrivener. But you can only load from within Scrivener what is actually in Scrivener. So to get themes in there, you need to save the theme. And this time, instead of saving it to a file, you are saving it internally to here. So it wants a name for this theme, right? So I'm going to call this the demo theme. And the settings I want included with it are all of these. Now, the difference between saving it to your hard drive or saving it to a cloud service and saving it in here is in the cloud service, it's backed up. You can share it with friends. You can share it to yourself on another install of Scrivener. But saving it inside Scrivener here, it's only available inside Scrivener here. But for what we want to do, I'm going to say OK to that. So down in here, I've saved the theme and I now have it available inside the load theme options. So I'm going to make sure that that is the theme that's loaded because I'm going to start making changes. At this stage, I haven't saved that outside of Scrivener. At this stage, I don't actually need to because it's just a copy of the default. But if you are a belt and braces person, then save the theme to a file as well and make sure there that we call it demo so we know which one it is and just save it out. Right, now everything is backed up and it's safe, you can start playing around. So what I mean when I say granular is just how many different options you have for how things look in Scrivener. Some of them we've already seen and they're not part of the theme. So what I mean by that is we've seen that we can have colours displaying over on the left hand side in the binder. We can have dots, we can have full colour, we can have a dual layout view, we can decide whether we see the info panel at all, and if we do, not exactly what colour it is, but what we did was we used the label down here to colour code the cards. So we've done all of that, but what we haven't done at this point is customise Scrivener itself, irrespective of what status things have. So that's when we go into our settings in here. And we have our appearance. And we start off with the general appearance. And the general appearance initially here is to do with, what's the opacity of the label colours when they're in the background, and it's sort of about halfway. Or what window size do you want? So these are options, but probably not the most exciting options. The most exciting options are where you get to the level that you're going to change how Scrivener looks to suit you. And I have seen these. Some of them are absolutely hideous, but some of them are gorgeous. So it just depends. So in here we have two different options in fact, if we start with the options here relate to the binder. So at this stage, you're at level 3 of the settings. There's the levels across the top, you're in appearance. Then the ones on the left hand side, the level 2, this is the binder. And then within the binder options, you have 3 further groupings of settings. So it's starting off with, do you want to see the current editor indicated? And what that's talking about is whether the one that you're on is highlighted. Then there's the base selection colour on the background colour and what the row spacing is. So you could actually change this. If you find that just a little bit too tight, you can change it. If you want to tighten it up even further, you can do that as well. So that's your row spacing in the options. Then you've got the actual font. And the font used for the binder is configurable in here. So at the moment, it's the system font and it's regular 12. But there's nothing to stop you coming in here, and if you particularly want it to be silly fonts like marker felt, then you can, and that is instantly rippled through into the binder. Oh, indeed, but probably that's not the best font, is it? I would probably go, if I was changing it, and I haven't, to be honest, I would probably go for Avenir, which is nice and neat and tidy, and I quite like that one. That one suits me nicely. But that is where you would change it. Then you have the options for whether you have a bold font for folders and or document groups. Now, if I put the folders to bold, then all of the folders change to bold. What are document groups? Well, these are individual documents that we have here. But what if 10 belonged to 9 and that belonged in there as well? Then that is a document group. So if we make that bold, anything that's a document group is bold as well. Good night to you, Peter. So that's a matter of personal preference, whether you do or whether you don't. I tend not to. My rationale being, if something has a disclosure triangle, then it's either a folder or a document group, one or the other. And I don't tend to use document groups that often. But it's an option. It's one of the options that you can configure in here. And then you have the colours, and this is for the binder. Remember, we're focused solely on the binder at the moment. But on the binder, you can set the background colour for the binder itself or the search results background. So at the moment, it's this very, very, very pale colour in here. But we could go in here and change the background colour. So you can either pick the background colour up from something. So I've got like a green button on this screen. Oh, there's a big change there, isn't there? But I have seen people do this. They have very, very bold and bright colours on there. If you're writing a football novel, that might work. Eco-friendly novel, whatever. You can change this in any way you like. I've also seen it pink a lot, like I said, for romance novels. Not something I would be doing with it, obviously. I find it works better the paler that you actually have it, obviously. But, as I say, I have seen people choose all kinds of colours. And it's what works best for you. You might decide to have two different themes, one for writing and one for editing. That would work. Or maybe a MacBites colour, if you want. The fact is, you can do it. Now, the next one is the search results background, which was more pinky than the original binder colour. So if I use the default, that sets it back. If I go to the results, it's just pinkier. But when do you see the search results background? And it must have something to do with the binder, because on the left-hand side. So we're already limited to the binder. Right, you can search up in this window here where it says 56 words and 0 words. Right, in there you can actually start to search. So if I put Devonthink in there and press enter, it takes me to the Devonthink thing. But over here, I can also search in here for keywords. Now, is it actually searching for keywords? Doesn't matter. What that's showing us is the results, and that's the pink it's talking about in here. So if we wanted to change the colour of that, we could indeed go in here and change that. Possibly, if we're going to need that, we're going to need it a bit brighter. Greyish. Come on, let's try and change this one. And somewhere in here... And it's not that one. I thought... Oh, where's it disappeared to? No, I'm not seeing it. But I can change it in there. Oh, lovely. But you can just change that. Now, I've never decided, never taken the decision to change that. Because to me, why would I do that? But if it matters to you, then clearly you can. And I still think pale looks better. But if it means something to you, great. Partly the reason that I don't bother, I used to tweak Word to within an inch of its life. And then I realised when I'm training people, I can't find the buttons because I've moved them all. So because I'm training people, they probably haven't done this. And it would make no sense for me to say in the background is lemon. Oh, no, it's not. It's pink. So I tend to leave it alone. But the fact is that you can change this if you choose to. If search results should be green in your mind, you can change it. But you can also flip it back to the default and then go back to the binder. So that's just the binder. You have extensive options for everything else. So the next option would be the corkboard. So if we flick to the corkboard and go up there, there's our corkboard. The background that we have here is the corkboard background, the freeform background, and the label view background. We also have status stamps. So these status stamps that are over the top of it, if it makes more sense to you that they are pinker or even bordering up to red, we go up to red over here, and that way. You can do. It's a total choice for you what you do with it. So Authors who are in here all the time, who are not training other people, tend to tweak these to something that makes sense to them. I take it as far as just the labels, and I sort out the labels so they match what I want them to look like. And what that actually looks like, I have a real file here, is this. This is my labels. They're quite bright, but not that they're in your face. They're just bright enough as far as I'm concerned about it. Right, but you can do. That's the point. You can do anything you want in here. Remember, these are just the colours. You can then change all of the fonts. You can change the options. You can choose the size, arranging cards from right to left, left to right, whether you display them as images with the photos, whether you don't. All of these options. Right, in addition to that, you've then got the index cards themselves. So the index card theme at the moment is standard, but you can have the index cards lined if you want. You can have them plain. You can have them rounded, which rounds the corners, which would fit nicely with Biggles. Or you can have them rounded and lined. And the beauty of putting the lines on it is the text actually matches up to the lines, which is a nice touch. So those are the options that you've got there. Again, I tend just to leave those to standard. Then you've got the fonts on them, so you can decide that's the titles of them at the top, so that is bold or semi-bold. And then you've got the text actually on the cards themselves. And again, all of these can be changed. So a lot of people, if they're doing a comic, they would go in here and they would change these fonts. You've also got the colours. Now, what we're talking about here is the index card background colour, which you're only really going to see if you haven't got a label on it and you have not set it for the background colour to be from the labels. So again, I don't make much of a change in here because I don't need to. Then you've got the inspector and the notes. So this is over this side here. So the notes background is the lemon that we're looking at. If we go in there and choose a lovely pink, that changes. So whatever we want it to be in there, that's the notes background. And then we've got the bookmarks preview, which is in here. So that would change in there. Let's get back to our preferences in here. And I think I'm going to have to change that notes background back to the default before I blind myself. Right, what else have we got? We've got the main editor. So the main editor is when you are actually editing the content inside here. So where's our Devon Think one? There we go. Number 8 is Devon Think. Right, so the editor at the moment is a white colour, but again, nothing to stop you changing that. Now notice, it's not the whole thing, it's the background behind the actual text itself. You can choose a texture if you want, or you can use a default colour. You have the fixed width background, so let's go into there. And you can see if you wanted that to match, then just set those to be the same. Then you've got the media background, which again at the moment is white. But if you wanted that to be the same, is that? I don't think I've got any media in there. Then you've got any comments area. Now your comments are over here in the background in here. As you can see, I'm not making this. This is not an improvement, is it? Then there's actually the text that's selected. So if you make a selection of text, it goes blue. But it doesn't actually have to go blue if you don't want it to go blue. So if it makes sense to you when it's selected that it's a yellow colour, now it's highlighting with yellow. So you do have complete granular control of all of the colours. It is amazing. You can also change the current line highlight if you want to. So you've got all of these options to change it. I would probably not do that. I'm quite happy with the default on everything, particularly in here. It makes sense to me. Having said that, I might decide to put some kind of colour on the fixed width, but if I did, it would be nothing that was that bright. I would be looking to take this down and heading somewhere to the middle, so it's just subtle like that. Some people like it, some don't. I don't particularly need to do that, but if you do, the option is there and you can. So in addition to the header bar, which is up here, so this one, if that is number 8 and that is Devon Think, and we bring this back, you can change these and that's what would be changing at the top. In addition to all of that, you have a different view on here. So if we go in and look at the outline view, you have a whole dedicated section in here for the outliner. So again, what fonts do you want? Do you want to see the folder titles in bold? Do you want to use document groups in bold? All of the options that we have seen elsewhere, but this time it's only in the outliner that you're changing it. So does the outliner have vertical grid lines? Mine doesn't. But if you want them to, you just put a tick in the box and toggle them on and off. Does it use alternate colours? Now, it would do if I didn't have the labels following through. So if you remember in the view, we had the option in here, let's get into here, to use the progress colours and where it's used. And we said in the outliner rows. But if we take that away, so it's not actually in the rows, and go into here, we can toggle on alternating rows in there. So it really depends on what makes sense to you. What's the best look for you? Because you've got the dots, you've actually got the best of both worlds. You've got the icons showing the colours, you've got the dots showing the colours, and you've got the alternating rows if you want as well. You can choose to always indent the title, which again I don't do. And the totals column only including documents included in compile, which will make much more sense when we look at compile. Then there's row spacing, so you can increase the spacing of this, make it much bigger if you wanted to, or even smaller. That was on 10, but you can make it smaller. I think 10's nice. And then you've got the spacing, which is titles only. So if it's only got the titles showing, which it doesn't at the moment, then you can change that. The synopsis is the line underneath here, and it is actually showing. If you remember, you can turn that off, and then this will ripple through and you can see it. So you can have two different settings depending on whether you've got the synopses showing or not. And all the colour options you've got. So there's a background, the standard background for that, if you wanted to choose a different colour there. If that just makes more sense to you, then do it. I can't say it does to me, but there you go. You can even get down to the colour of the grid. So I said with the grid in the options, vertical grid lines, if I go into the colours and I set the background to the default and I go to the grid, if that's not deep enough, you could change that so it is. So take it right up to black if you wanted. Or if it's too much, you just literally want a hint of it, you could take it down more. Then you've got the group titles. At the moment, a lovely blue, which I don't think I've got any titles in that. And then the actual synopsis themselves. Now this one's interesting because if you go into there and turn the synopsis on, you see the text underneath. But black's really quite harsh. So even if you only change this a bit, you went to like steel, the distinction is enough that you automatically know that that is not a title. So I think that one is actually quite useful. I will probably set that up myself. Right, then you've got the page view when you're looking at the page itself. So let's just have a look through here. Quick references, which were the windows that we opened. In essence, anything that you see, you can change. And that's the point. And when you've changed it, you can then save that as your default settings. So let's go make some changes that we can actually see in here. So we'll go to the notes. So the inspector and the notes, and at the moment it is that lovely lemon, but we will tweak it slightly so it's kind of orangey, like that. So there's something that we can actually see. All the settings in here are different to how I actually had them set. The font's different. This is the stage. At this point, what we've got is the demo theme that is applied. If you want to share this to another machine, this is when you need to save the theme to a file. So this one's my demo, but now I've made changes to it, so I'll put the date and time on it, and that way I will know which is the latest version and save it. And then I could load that into another instance of Scrivener. I could also in here switch back to the default, which automatically switches it back to the default, including the fonts. But because I created this demo version, instead of having to know where it is on my file system, it actually exists inside Scrivener, and I can switch between them just by enabling it again. She said, and it isn't changing. Oh, there's always something, isn't there? So in that case, I will load it in. It was that one, and I will load it in. That should solve the problem. There we go. So everything has gone back to the changes that I made. That's why I always export it, just in case. So export it before you start, export it when you've finished at the end. And then just put them in a safe place. Probably a good idea, if you're using Notion or anything like that, to create a little table, drag and drop the file into it, and then put a description next to it. And then it's easy to find. Obviously, doing that way, you would have to download it first before you could re-import it, but that's the idea. Now, if we use all of those options in conjunction with a couple of other views that we've not looked at yet, then things get even more powerful. So, many moons ago, because Scrivener existed from 2006, that was before Lion. And why is that important? Because the Lion version of what was OS X back then and is now Mac OS, the Lion version included something called full screen. But people had been screaming for full screen for 5 years before it arrived. So the developers of Scrivener had a full screen view. When full screen actually came out, they had to work around it. So if you've used full screen in Scrivener, but it was prior to 2011, admittedly that's a while ago now, full screen back then didn't necessarily mean what full screen means now. So full screen mode, you have, let's go in and look at the Dev and Think one. So I'm in here and I'm working, and these are all the colours that I've got, and there's the stuff that I'm focusing on. And I go into View, and I go to Full Screen View. That is Mac OS Full Screen View. It hides the menu at the top, and it takes the application full screen, and it's modal. A modal means I'm working on that app, I'm not working on any other app. It's a single modality. I'm only working on this app. And that is full screen view. If you were to ask a writer, is that a good full screen view? The answer is no. No, it's not. That's not what they mean when they say full screen. What they mean is a focus mode. So let's come out of full screen view. What Scrivener used to call full screen view got renamed when macOS hijacked full screen view. And it is now in the view under composition mode. So very old versions of Scrivener, that will say enter full screen. But it's not full screen anymore, it's called composition mode. But composition mode is nice. Composition mode lets you focus. So what we've got here is it says typewriter scrolling is enabled. Lovely. And what it's talking about is wherever you're typing will be in the middle of the screen. So you can disable that if you don't want, but I'm just going to leave it alone. That is composition mode. So you're focusing on one document or scrivening, depending on what you want to call it. You can scroll up and down it, and you can work with it, and you can edit it. But you are focused on it. The idea is to the exclusion of everything else. But if, like me, you've got two side monitors, there's plenty to distract me. So it's only on the main screen as well, but many writers tend to use laptops and then they're not bothered by the extra screens. I guess I could always turn them off, but that doesn't happen. But what we're looking at now is the composition mode. Now, composition mode is presupposing that you're writing, isn't it? And nothing else. But there are a few options that you've got. So hover down at the bottom edge of the screen and you do have these options here. But you cannot have these displaying on the screen at the same time, because as soon as you move away, you're in composition mode. They don't expect you to want to be bothered with anything else on the screen. But down here, this is where you can toggle things on and off. So starting at this side, this is talking about the scale of the text. So if we scale this, you want to focus, so we'll scale it up to 175, then you can do. Not particularly a good look at this size, but you can do. The next option you've got is where the paper is positioned. So what we're looking at here is two things. The black bit is the background, and the greyish bit with the white bit on top of it, that's the paper. So the paper is this bit here, the white bit there. So what it's talking about down here when it says paper position is literally moving that paper. So if you want it all the way on the left, or more to the left, in the centre, to the right, or all the way across on the right, why might you want that? Well, I actually think the left bit's quite handy. But you can turn other elements on here. So you could turn the inspector on, and that gives you access to the synopsis and the notes. And because you can see the notes, you can get to your labels and you can get to your status as well. So you might want to see that. Other thing you might want to see, keywords. So if you want it lined up like that, putting it in the middle makes sense. But if you want these things over on the right hand side, it might make more sense to move this down here. And as that just said as I hovered and then it disappeared, you can change the vertical position by holding down that key. So I'm holding the option key at that point. And it's not particularly moving, is it? No, I don't think so. Right, that gives you more room to move these about to where you actually want them. So you might decide with that you actually do want to take that all the way across and have these lined up over here. So it's focus mode, but it's focus mode on your terms with what windows you want to particularly see, in addition to the content. But if you weren't using those, why else would you do that? So I'll go through the rest of the options and then we'll go back to why we would want to do that. This bit here changes the width of the paper. So if you want it wider or you want it much narrower, you can change that in there. Right, we've seen the inspector. Go to will let you go to a specific area. So we had things in here, you could literally go to another part of the document without having to go back and navigate the binder. So we wanted in here Embrace, which had lots of text in it. So that's what go to does. Focus enables you to focus on part of what you're looking at. So we're looking at one single scrivening, but if we go into the focus, you can focus on an individual line like that. So the rest is there. And as you move down, each line that you click on is the one that's like sharp and in your face where the rest is faded out. You could also focus on a sentence, which in this case is the whole thing, because this wasn't written as prose. So if I move through these, that's the same as paragraph. But if in here, that was the end of that, and that was another one, then I'm focusing at that point on an individual sentence. And the last option I've got, then it focuses on a paragraph irrespective of whether there's multiple sentences in it or not. That's the typewriter mode, which I'm turning on and off. And then we've got the keywords. So the keywords and the inspector show you extra windows, and these are all to do with configurations. You do have the option over here to fade the background. So the background is black, and if we fade it to nothing, then it's over the top of the other part of Scrivener. You'll notice it's not the same Scrivener file. So it's actually what's behind it. So if we just come out of that and move this Scrivener file, so we've got nothing in the background there, and go back into it, and then fade the background, what you're actually going to see is your desktop. So if you did just want to see your desktop, if you had something on your desktop, whatever, then you could choose to see the desktop behind it. Everything else works exactly the same way. It's just you're seeing your background rather than this solid black block in there. So what options have you got? And that will take you out of the view. Well, if we go into the options and we go into appearance and we go into composition mode, these are all the things that you can change about composition mode. So you can automatically highlight the current line. You can use the dark view if you want to use dark. So if we do that and go back in, that doesn't look that much different to me, but it's supposed to be in dark mode. So let's come out of there and back into here. What margins you have, you can really make as many changes as you like. And you've got all of the colour options as well. So what do you want for the editor? You can put a texture on it. What do you want the text? Now, notice here, you're overriding the text colour. So if when you're in composition mode, you think it would be nice if it was like a little grayer, just not as in your face, then you can do that. So let's go back in and see if it likes that at the moment. Oh dear. Not that good, but oh, now we've gone dark as well. Excellent. Well, at least that's worked. But it's that steel colour. So you can configure this independently from everything else. So this should let you know and confirm what we've said before, that what it looks like in Scrivener, it doesn't even have to look the same in Scrivener in two different views, much less look anything like the output that you're going to create. It doesn't need to look anything like it at all. So there's another example of that being overridden. So where was that option? Right, let's take away the dark option and go back to the colours. So we've overridden the text. Then we've got the title text. So anything that you see in that view, you can set the colour of in here. All of these. A whole lot in there. Now, I did think... was it? Yeah, I'm sure it was in there. Maybe not. Let me have a look in here. Yeah, once you've set these, one thing that you can do is then use this as the default for everything else. So that's another option you've got. I must admit, I very seldom use the composition view. I should probably use it more, but I very seldom do use that. Because I think there's too much missing. So if you are, if I want to make something bold, I'm going to use the shortcut keys, and the shortcut keys all work. But there's a nice hybrid option, and it went away. So I showed this probably about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 6, and this was cool. And then the app disappeared. But the good news is this week it's back. So one little trick, dirty hack time. One little trick that you can use in any application. You could use it in Scrivener right now as it's sat on the screen, or any other application. But it comes into its own when you are in composition mode. Do you know, I've turned the dark thing off and it's still there, but never mind, we'll go with it. Right, in here, these are the options that you've got. So those are the tools you have access to. And really, you've only got the inspector and the keywords, because the rest is to do with navigation in here or things like that. But if I wanted to highlight the word Devonthink and literally highlight it with a highlighter pen, yeah, you're not doing that in here. You're going to have to know the shortcut, you're going to have to apply a style or some other way, but you're not doing it in here because it's not an option. And even if it was, I'd have to highlight it and go down here and then pick it up. But if you are working on a MacBook Pro, you may well have access to, if it's the right MacBook Pro, the touch bar at the top. And the touch bar would actually have in it extra tools that if, like me, you're on an iMac, you're just not going to have access to it. That's not kind, is it? That's not kind at all. But the app in question is called Touche. And if I run Touche down here at the bottom, this is an app that emulates the touch bar on a MacBook Pro. And oh, look what's in there. I can highlight it in any colour that I like. Don't have to move out of here. But I do if I don't have Touche. So Touche is meant for helping developers who don't have a MacBook Pro with a touch bar see how the touch bar would work with their application. The dirty hack part of it is, if it works for them to do that, it works for me to sit here and look at this, and I get extra tools that I would have no access to any other way. So not only do I get the highlight, but if I'm coming down here and I'm thinking, right, I want some bullet points, but the bullet points I want are numbers, I can actually go in there and do that from this bar, and I'm interacting with it with my mouse. I also get these options that you get on iOS for text. So it thinks I want to start with sure or is or I. So if I put I, you'll see I could use the mouse to correct this. If I type something wrong, so how could we spell wrong if you're with me? I know, we'll go like that. Yes, I get this because I've got an application running, but I also get that. And I can interact with it and correct it. So actually, it's giving me features I do not have access to any other way on my iMac. But I would, if this was Scrivener on a MacBook Pro, I would have this automatically on my touch bar at the top. Love this. Love this. Oh, indeed. So I've got access to other things as well. All the things that you would have, including, volume controls that you may not have if you've got a snazzy keyboard that's for typing your memoirs on, and it might not have the volume controls on it. It might be one of these mechanical keyboards that just don't have that. But with Touche, you would have the benefit of all of it. And what is in here changes depending on what you're doing. So if you're making a selection, you will get different things. So you've got the option to open that, but that would automatically close. I just think that's so cool. I really like that. So if I'm in composition mode, I think just the highlighter pens and the option to change to numbers and bullets is something that's worthwhile having that on the screen for. It's totally free. You can get that from redsweater.com. I think it's on the homepage now. Maybe you could find the link, Mike. And I have that. If I am in composition mode, then I have that showing. It's redsweater.com, Carol. And it's an app called Touche. Mike is getting the link and pasting it in now. It is literally, you just download it. It's a zip file. Unzip it, drag and drop it into your applications folder and type Touche to run it and you're good. There's no configuration with it and it is completely free. Can't say it'll be there tomorrow. It is for developers and it has disappeared once, but due to demand, they brought it back. And I just think sometimes I have that up if I'm in Ulysses. Ulysses and Scrivener are where I use that the most. The beauty of this thing as well, if you don't like it at the bottom of the screen, then move it to the top. You can have it right down the bottom if you want. I don't have it right down the bottom because I want it to be not interfering with that. So that's about right as far as I'm concerned. And then I kind of centre it and that's it. Love that. Absolutely love that. Very, 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 very useful. Like I say, if just for the highlight and the bullets, because there's no other way to do it, not in composition mode. You would have to type the first thing and then hope for the best, etc. But you might as well use that if you are comfortable using extra apps, and I certainly am. That is one of the best things. So we are at the point that definitely needs changing, doesn't it? But you see, when you go into this view, you've got a whole range of other tools. So as I'm up here, I've got access to the labels and the stamps. So if I go in there, I've got these all lined up. If I come out of that and I go back in there, I've got the status. This is just too cool. Oh, you can even see the icons. You can change the icons and see the recently used icons. It really is. I'm not a big fan of the touch bar, I've got to admit. I've never had a MacBook Pro with a touch bar. I was not thrilled with it. I thought it was a cop-out. I thought it would be better to have a keyboard with haptic feedback. And you could make that really toughened glass. You could have the haptic feedback. You wouldn't have things like, dropping coffee on it and etc. because there wouldn't be any gaps. And I thought it was a really, fob you off with this thing. So I would never buy a MacBook Pro with that on it, to use it in anger. But in here, this is quite cool. These are all the options you've got for layouts. This is quite nice. And in here, obviously, you could put that at the bottom of the screen if you wanted, or you could have it on another screen. So I've just put it on the other screen. You've got access to it, or wherever makes sense for you to actually have that. Might seem a bit of a gimmick. You'll either love it or loathe it. There are occasions it might be useful more than others. But certainly in composition mode, I find it a godsend. So you've built your den. Tell me, in fact, send me screenshots of what colours you go for. A girl needs to know these things. I'm very, very boring. I have it as the default. If I didn't and then I moved back to the default, I'd be lost. So the only thing that I really do change in terms of colours is the labels. And these labels are too pale for me. I don't want them as in your face as I used to have them, and I did used to have them quite strong. But I've shown you the ones that I use, which are these ones here. So if we go into project and project settings, these are the ones I've got. So they are reasonably bright. I mean, that green is definitely bright. I might tone that down, I don't know. But as they are, I've got enough of a distinction between the yellow and the orange. The green, is the green too much? Let's have a look at it. Let's change one to green. No, I can live with that. That's not that much. As long as I can tell in here. So that's a hard hold. Yeah. And the blue one, which I just left as blue. Yeah, I can live with those. So those are the colours that I have, but I don't change the background of the binder. I don't change the notes, etc. Now, the reason that they've changed at the moment is that I've changed them across the board. So while I'm in this, all the files that I've got are using that default. But other than that, I only change the labels. I will change this back. You can watch me change this back to the default. Let's go get the default. Let's get you out of the way. And I will load in my default and sanity will be resumed. There we go. So my actual file over there looks like that now. And I can live with those colours. Couple of things I might actually change. And that is in the outliner here. Let's go up there. I like to see the colour. So I'm not going to change that and do the alternative things. But I might put in the verticals or something like that if I can make it very subtle. And another thing I think would be incredibly useful is to put the synopsis notes in a paler colour. So that's something I probably will do. But other than that, I tend to leave it alone, but your mileage may vary. So I have no idea what we're doing next week, although at some point we will be looking at styles. So let's head off into here. What do we have coming up? Oh, we are back with you next week, 24th of September. September's running away with us now, isn't it? Still February 2020 in my mind. I'm not aging, you know. I'm going to get a portrait to put in the attic. Not having it. And, of course, available on demand at youtube.com/ElaineGiles, where there is an entire playlist. And you can get there to macbites.co.uk/after-hours playlist. We will be live on Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Well, yeah, we'll be live because it'll be a premiere for MacBites episode 147. I have no idea what's going to be in this show, so it'll be interesting. I've got nothing prepared. I was a day ahead last week, and I feel I'm like 5 days behind this week, so never mind. Right, we love you guys. If you love us, can you give us a like? It really makes a difference with YouTube. And then there's the mailing lists. So there is elainegiles.com/VIP, which is all things not MacBites, basically. And there's MacBites, which is, guess what? All things MacBites. So that is macbites.co.uk/MacBites-mail. And then there is the Slack chat room, where we carry on the conversation. And you would be more than welcome to join us. It is macbites.co.uk/Slack. And you can contact us all of these lovely, lovely places. Good night to you, Simon. Good to have you with us. Are you now lambardering? Thank you, Simon. Much appreciated. Oh, such a busy week this week. And it's still hot. Why is it this hot in the UK at the end of September? When I was a kid, the leaves were off the trees, you were freezing, and your mum was sending you off to school in a fur hat with 2 bubbles on it. You looked a complete dork. And you're sat here topless, and I could do with a bikini.
Don't tell everybody that.
Well, no, there'd be queue outside then, wouldn't there? Yes, but he's sat here topless. Oh my, most unseemly. Okay, do we have any final questions? Do we have any requests for next week? Let me know. I need to know these things. Right, let's pop that over there, and then I can... Have you seen this, Mike? I think I'll take a screenshot of this so you know what I'm seeing, because luckily I've switched you and you're not seeing what I'm seeing, because what I'm seeing is not pretty. It's not pretty at all. I've got some kind of corruption going on. It was when they updated PowerPoint. Something that didn't end well. Do you want to test something for me, Mike?
Yeah.
Open PowerPoint, get a new presentation. Oh, you need photos. Oh, Mike, him. You want photos of Mike topless? Let me have a
No.
look. No, he's saying no. He's very shy, really.
Image rights and all that. Right.
When you were a kid, did you go in like Smiths and Boots, and they had like huge posters in like frames that you could like flip between?
Yeah.
There was one of a girl with a tennis racket and a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the one, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've got an image of with you. Is this your image rights?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
How would you add another slide to that presentation, Mike?
Click new slide there.
Right. You are aware there is a shortcut, which is Command-Shift-N.
Oh, it's Command.
No, Mike. Command-Shift-M. N for
Oh,
new.
yeah, I think I was.
Right, well, you do it then.
Command Shift and M. M for mother.
No, N for new.
Oh, N for new.
They've broken it, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Found this out last week. Bad words were said. If you go to the menu,
Yeah.
insert new something or other.
Insert new slide.
What does it say is the shortcut?
It doesn't.
Naughty, naughty. Taking it off me. I use that all the time.
Not
Guess
no
what?
more.
Oh, yes, I do. Keyboard Maestro. Fixed it. Right. Good night to you, Debbie. Good night to Carol. And Kim needs photos. We'll think about that. We will think about it.
That's all we'll do.
Yeah, see, he's not happy. No. Getting grumpy now. Don't want him grumpy. Can't be doing with him grumpy.
No.
Right, okay then. We're going to head off and have something nice because it's far too hot. And put the fan on because it's far too hot. Have I mentioned it's far too hot?
No.
It's hideous. It is. It's totally hideous. And we'll be back with you next week. Or you can join us tomorrow at Brooklands by request. And don't forget Tuesday, 8 o'clock with MacBites. But for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.